Labyrinth is a 1986 fantasy movie directed by Jim Henson. This movie has everything. Puppets, David Bowie, ball gowns, 80s music, and it has developed a bit of a cult following. Almost 40 years after it came out, the franchise is still going. There's comics, an unofficial fan event, a possible sequel. So I'd like to explore this franchise to see what about it has given it such an enduring legacy, especially compared to other fantasy films of the time. I mean, to be honest, a big part of it is probably just David Bowie. He's independently very popular. He has music in this movie, and also some very tight pants. And we know from the juggling, some very dexterous fingers. I know he was a lot of people's sexual awakening, which, speaking of, I'd like to talk about the sponsor of today's video, Bellesa Boutique. They are a by-women company for all things sexual wellness. Bellesa's mission is to empower everyone to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. And Bellesa and I are teaming up to send out free toys or gift cards to everyone who signs up with my link. This is the Rose toy. It's a suction toy that looks like a flower. You know I love when things are cute. The Air Vibe and the Flutter Vibe, which are both dual stimulation. The Air Vibe uses suction, while the Flutter Vibe uses physical stimulation that's meant to be more stroke-like. The Pebble, which combines vibration and suction. This one is pink, which is exciting. And the Thump, which has vibration, suction, and also thumps. It does this thing that's almost like a pulsing motion. They're all waterproof and rechargeable, and with the exception of the Rose, they come in these little compact cases, and you charge them in the case. Very sleek, very discreet. If you're interested, you can check out my link in the description for a free toy or gift card. Now let's talk about Jim Henson. A very sexy transition. I mean, I know some of you are probably into him. Jim Henson directed Dark Crystal in 1982. It's a very high fantasy movie with all puppets. It got kind of mixed reception, and so Jim Henson decided, hey, let's try that again, but with some human actors and a little bit more fun.
After Dark Crystal, I do know that the feeling was the film was received as a little bit too dry, a little too esoteric, and that people basically came out of Dark Crystal going, wow, it's fantastic, but where's that Henson? Where's the zany? People always say zany, and the Muppets, really, my dad's work was never zany. It was kind of wild. There was a bit of a calculated abandon to the energy. But so that was the idea. Was what the imagination that he was applying to Dark Crystal? Can we do that? But can we have the funny back?
The original idea for the movie came from art by Brian Froud. He had worked with Jim Henson on Dark Crystal, and he does a lot of art of like fantasy creatures. So he had done this art piece of a baby surrounded by a bunch of goblins.
I was in a limousine with Jim Henson and my wife, Wendy, and I had this strong image of the baby surrounded by goblins. His eyes lit up. He said, that sounds great, they're goblins. And he said, well, what's the story? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, and then something popped in my mind, which is a labyrinth. I said, a labyrinth is often symbolic of many things. So if we had a labyrinth in it, it could mean all sorts of things.
And that art and design made it all the way through to the final movie. In fact, the baby in the movie is played by Brian Froud's son, Toby.
My father drew this picture before I was even conceived.
The extraordinary thing is that in my initial design of the baby, when Toby was born, he looked just like my design. So I've obviously been working on a cosmic level as well. And that's the reason he's called Toby in the movie, because that's the way he could respond when we were ordering him about on set.
I've seen Brian Froud frame this as fate, like he drew this baby and then he had a baby that looked like the baby that he drew. But that baby just kind of looks like any white baby. Like, I don't know if this was fate so much as just a generic baby. When working on the movie, Brian Froud made concept art of a bunch of different goblins and weird little creatures. I realized when working on this video that I actually have a book of Brian Froud's. So this book is called Gnomes, which is not by Brian Froud. But after the success of Gnomes, the publisher then made Fairies, which is by Brian Froud. And it's all this like cool, creepy creature art. It was crazy researching for this video and being like, the Fairies book? This Fairies book? that I've owned for years. So Brian Froud was doing all this art and design. Meanwhile, the script development was a little bit complicated. The credited scriptwriter is Terry Jones, who you might know from Monty Python. He wrote a very comedic script using Brian Froud's goblin art as inspiration.
I sat at my desk with Brian's drawings stacked on one side of the desk and writing away sort of to see what would happen. And every time I came to a new scene and I needed something to happen, I looked through Brian's drawings and found a character who was kind of speaking to me already. And suddenly there was the scene. It was wonderful. It was a strange way of collaborating, because although Brian and I never sat down and worked together, it felt that that's what we were doing the whole time.
But there were flaws with that script, so other people were brought in to sort of rewrite it.
And Terry really wanted to do it, and he wrote a really funny script that everyone loved, that had story problems, I guess you could call them problems, story weaknesses. And I still think the film today has story weakness. As I watch it, I feel like there is weakness to the story. So anyway, my father he asked advice from somebody, and a writer off of Fraggle Rock came in, Laura Phillips, and helped with the structure. And as often happens when you're restructuring, you're slightly changing character arcs, you're slightly changing story beats, it unravels all the dialogue. So then what happened was he now had a piece that was sort of structural and was not funny anymore. So Elaine came in, and again, I'm surprised you know that, because I'm sure she was not meant to be there. She flew in the dark of night and stayed in our house and worked like in an upper room, you know. But she just worked with my father. I can't remember, 2 or 3 days, flat out. All this was happening when we were not far out from shooting. We were real close to shooting, and then Terry came back in. I think my father didn't want to bring Terry back in on the first restructured script, because it was like all this stuff was gone. And then he came back in.
And so we ended up with this script, which, not to sound judgy, but finding out that that's the process of how the script got made, it does kind of make sense. There's some conflicting tone things going on with this movie that I think is partially explained by this process. This movie was apparently a co-production between Henson's production studio and Lucasfilm, and George Lucas was involved and around. Then we have David Bowie as Jareth the Goblin King. From the beginning, Jim Henson wanted to cast a famous musician who would also write songs for the movie.
When we first started to write this film, we had this evil Goblin King. And then somewhere quite early on, we said, what if he were a rock singer, a contemporary figure? And then we said, who? And we said, Michael Jackson, Sting, David Bowie. See, I mean, there are only a few people that you would think of. And David was immediately the one we wanted.
And part of the reason was because he wanted this character to have sort of a rock star energy, which is basically what's going on with his character. I don't know if I thought it wasn't on purpose. It makes sense that it's on purpose, because, like, duh. But it's funny that Jim Henson was, like, sitting around like, I need to find a rock star to bring some pizzazz to this performance. Which I think David Bowie was the right choice. I can't imagine it being any other 80s rock star. David Bowie also wrote songs for the movie. He didn't do the score, but he did, like, some original songs. And apparently he was very professional and came in with, like, 5 almost complete demos.
And I was actually there the first time David came in to play. My dad hadn't heard anything, and he was waiting to hear some demo tracks from David. And David came and played him finished tracks that he had recorded with the Harlem Choir and everything. And he'd already, done 4 or 5 of the tracks. And my dad was expecting, a piano and David singing along. And he had beautiful, these gorgeous finished tracks.
I like the music. It's very campy and fun, very 80s. But my mom did hate it. I made her watch the movie a few years ago. She didn't like it then. And I was playing some of the music recently when working on this video. She was like, what is that? Is that like an 80s boy band? I was like, it's the music from Labyrinth. This is famous man David Bowie. And then our other human cast member is Jennifer Connelly as Sarah. It's weird that her name is my name is Sarah, if you didn't know. And this movie is a lot of David Bowie saying my name, which is odd. Jennifer Connelly was 14 in this movie, which this is a coming of age movie, and the character of Sarah is sort of supposed to represent and explore the struggle of growing up and being a kid versus being an adult.
She did bounce between wanting to absolutely pull off the illusion that she was an adult and then wishing to God that she was a kid. She was still in that age where you could see it, that conflict, that I wish I was a kid who could just play and have fun and have no responsibility, and yet I can pull off the illusion that I'm an adult and sophisticated and wise and experienced, so where do I want to be? And flip-flopping back and forth, and that's, you know, what both Jennifer and Sarah were going through.
The movie itself opens with opening credits played over a David Bowie song, and there's a CGI owl flying around. Owls are important to this movie. This was very early CGI, like one of the first CGI creatures on film, I think. I don't think it looks good at all, which I guess is fine. But it is strange because it's like, this is a puppet movie. Why do you have this CGI thing in here? Then we cut to a real owl in the park. And in the park, we see Sarah, like, LARPing, acting to herself. She's in this Ren Fair costume, but she has jeans on under it, and her hair is kind of tied up messily. And she is monologuing from a book called Labyrinth. But she has trouble remembering the end of the monologue. Then she realizes, oh no, I have to get home, I'm running late. So then she runs home in the rain with her big sheepdog, and she gets home and her stepmom is really upset with her because she's like an hour late. Sarah was supposed to babysit her baby brother, Toby. Toby is technically her half-brother because it's from her dad and her stepmom. And Sarah's stepmom is like, listen, I only ask you to babysit when it's not going to interfere with your plans. And Sarah's like, you don't even know what my plans are. I mean, I'd assume you'd tell me if you had a date. I'd be happy if you had a date. You should be going on dates at your age. But Sarah's upset and she storms off. And the stepmom says to Sarah's dad, she treats me like a wicked stepmom in a fairy tale no matter what I do. Then we see Sarah's room, and we pan over a lot of things that will come up later. Her room has a lot of toys and fairy tale books and fantasy things, kind of like a 80s version of my room. Her dad offers to talk to her, and she's like, go away. And then he does go away, and she's like, it's like he didn't even want to talk to me. She's very whiny in this opening scene. Then she realizes that one of her toys is missing, which she's very angry about because no one is supposed to go in her room. And so she storms in to see Toby, who has the little stuffed animal, but he's like dropped it on the floor. Then she angrily tells Toby a story. She's like, do you want a story? Here's a story. There was a girl who had a slave caring for a baby, but the Goblin King liked the girl, and the goblins could take the baby away to Goblin City, but the girl knew that the Goblin King would keep the baby forever, so she didn't ask. But one day, after her stepmother had been particularly cruel, she asked the goblins. We're meant to understand that the story that she's referencing here is from the book Labyrinth that she was reading from earlier. And this story that she's telling is intercut with goblin puppets. And they're like, yeah, say the words. Which the words are, I wish the Goblin King would come and take the baby away right now, or something like that. So she says the right words, and then immediately we can hear that Toby has stopped crying because he has been taken away by the Goblin King. And she's like, uh-oh. Then an owl flies into the room from the window, and it turns into the Goblin King, Jareth. And there's some, like, PA off-screen throwing a bunch of glitter on screen. There's, like, a cloud of glitter he appears in. And she's like, hey, I didn't really mean it. Can you, like, give him back? I appreciate what you're, like, doing, but I actually do, in fact, want Toby back. And he's like, what's said cannot be unsaid, Sarah. And the Goblin King is like, well, I've brought you this gift. And he holds up this, like, crystal ball. And if you look into it, it will show you your dreams. But this is no gift for an ordinary girl who takes care of a screaming baby. So, like, to get the gift, she has to give up Toby. And she's like, no, I appreciate the gift, but, like, I do, in fact, want my brother back. Side note about this crystal. Throughout this movie, David Bowie is, like, juggling these crystal balls. And the way they achieved this was they had an illusionist magician behind David Bowie, like putting his arm up through to look like David Bowie's arm, and he's performing the tricks without even being able to see them.
I've known Michael Motion's work for several years, and he does this incredible act, and what he does is as close to real magic as anything that I really know. We had this design for what Jareth was, and we wanted him to have certain kind of magical powers and something to express these magic powers, and so then we thought of the idea of using Michael to do that. I don't know how many takes we did, but it was lots and lots.
Wait, I have a much better plan. I had fun. It was very amusing. I don't think Michael Motion, the juggler, had much fun. It was agonizing for him.
Very impressive of him. So then the Goblin King is like, all right, fine. The baby is in my castle. You have to solve the labyrinth to get to my castle, and I'm going to give you 13 hours to do it before Toby becomes one of us forever. And Sarah's pretty confident. She's like, I think I can do it. Which the Goblin King has sort of teleported them magically to the outside of the labyrinth, and then he leaves. So Sarah walks down to where the labyrinth walls are, and she meets this hideous little creature named Hoggle. So here's what's going on with Hoggle. There's a human being inside of Hoggle, actress Sherry Weiser, and she is wearing like an animatronic face. And there are like 4 guys off screen using hydraulics to control the animatronic of the face remotely.
Hoggle is certainly the most complicated puppet creature we've ever built. It's the most technically elaborate face because we've put about 18 motors in there to control all the different portions of the face with these 18 motors and 4 people operating that from outside by radio control. Creates enormous problems in just trying to figure out how to make that into one expression.
The Hoggle crew are 5 performers, one of which is really an actress, Sherry. She's inside the costume. She does all the body movement, and her head is inside the head. However, the jaw is not connected to her jaw. Nothing that the face is doing has any connection with what she's doing with her face. The other 4 members of the crew are all radio crew, myself included.
The actress cannot see out of this face. She can only see when the mouth is open, so they try and open the mouth as much as they can so she can see where she's going.
And she can only see when his eyes are open. So, when his mouth is open, it's the only time she can see. So people would say to me, I really like what you did with the voice of Hoggle, how he's always going, he can't shut up. I just love that. And I was like, yeah, because that was the only way Sherry could see. So it's the way we would shoot. It's Hoggle would be walking along and he wouldn't have any dialogue. You know, it would be Jennifer who would be speaking, but Hoggle would be heading right for a tree, so he'd have to go,
No one get mad at me, but I feel like it's a running theme in this movie where there's puppets that were a lot of work and they look not great. It's like a drag race design challenge where it's like, I spent hours stoning this corset. It's like, well, it doesn't look good though. I think part of it's the uncanny valley of like, it's a human body and a very large animatronic face that's like a bulbous baby head. And then also I feel like the animatronic part of it doesn't look amazing. Like every time he moves his face, you're like, oh, I don't love that. I'm sure I'm gonna get Hoggle defenders in the comments that are like, no, he looks great. Not even, my problem isn't even that he's ugly. Because like, he's supposed to be ugly. That's fine. I just feel like he doesn't look as good as some of the other puppets because of how they had to execute this effect. Because it's 4 people trying to coordinate moving the muscles of the face all together at the same time, and then also separately a woman just in there moving around. Whatever. It's very impressive, the technology that they did to make Hoggle happen. Hoggle is a very grumpy little character, and we have a bit where we keep getting his name wrong. So Sarah's like, that's horrible. And he's like, no, I ain't. I'm Hoggle. And you're like, all right. Sarah convinces Hoggle to show her the entrance to the labyrinth, which then after that he leaves. And then she's inside the labyrinth, but it's like an endless corridor that has tree branches sprinkled with glitter. And she's running, and she's not making any progress and getting very frustrated. And then she meets this little worm, a polite little worm living in the walls, a big worm puppet for the close-ups, and then a small worm puppet with Sarah to sort of give the forced perspective that it's a small little worm. And the worm gives her the advice to walk into the wall, and so she does, and then she finds the rest of the labyrinth. Then we cut to the Goblin King, and he's in his castle. He's surrounded by a bunch of his goblins who are making mischief and horsing around, and he seems kind of annoyed to be there. We get the vibe that he's kind of bored and tired of these goblins.
Jareth is the Goblin King. One feels that he's rather reluctantly inherited the position of being Goblin King, as though he really would like to be, I don't know, down in Soho or something. But he's not. His thing in life is to be Goblin King. And he runs the whole place as well as he can. And he's kind of spoiled. He gets everything his own way. He's a big kid.
But then we get a musical number. Jareth, the Goblin King, is like dancing with Toby, and there's like 40 goblin puppets dancing around with him.
When you get all the puppets out of that set, it just looks like Swiss cheese. There's no set left. There's holes everywhere. People were walking around saying, any minute the set's going to fall down.
Back with Sarah, she meets some playing card-shaped guards. They are 2 guards who are guarding 2 separate doors. One of the doors leads to the castle, and the other one leads to certain doom. And the guards explain that one of them can only tell the truth, and the other one can only tell lies. So she asks one of the guards, if I ask the other guard which way this door goes to, what would he say? And that, I guess, does get her the right answer. But because the labyrinth is unfair, she goes through the correct door and falls to certain doom anyway.
I was upset at what I considered logic flaws in the story. I remember as we were working on it, I was not happy that Sarah could solve the riddle of which door to go through to get to the kingdom versus certain doom. She solved it correctly. It was a tough riddle and ended up in the oubliette. And I was very upset. I said, this is a flaw. And I think really, what it was about was, to a 14-year-old, you do often make absolutely the correct decision. Sometimes, doesn't matter what she does, it doesn't work out.
So Sarah falls into a tunnel of hands, and the hands sort of move together to form like faces, and they talk to her, and they're like, do you want to go up or down? And she's like, well, I'm already pointed down, so I guess I'll go down. And they're like, bad choice, all right. And then the hands drop her into an oubliette. We check on Jareth, who's been spying on her in his crystal ball, and he's like, she shouldn't have gotten this far. Well, whatever. The dwarf is going to lead her back to the beginning, because Hoggle is in cahoots with the Goblin King. And so Jareth is going to get Hoggle to take Sarah back out of the labyrinth. Back in the oubliette, Hoggle is there, and he's like, you're trapped in this oubliette. There's no windows or doors. I'm the only one who knows how to get out, so I'm going to take you back to the beginning. And she's like, no. And so she bargains with him. She has like a plastic bracelet on, and so she's like, I'll trade you this. You don't have to take me all the way to the castle, but can you take me as far as you can? And Hoggle really likes jewels. He has a pouch of jewels on his belt, so he takes the bracelet. He shows her through a door that wasn't there before and into a tunnel. And in this tunnel, there are a bunch of stone faces that are saying, like, turn back, there's danger ahead. And Hoggle's like, ignore them, they're just false alarm rocks. And the rocks are like, I'm just doing my job. Oh, let me say it, I haven't said it in so long. It's moments like that where you're like, that's from the Terry Jones script. Sarah and Hoggle are walking in this tunnel, and then a crystal ball rolls past them, and they're like, uh-oh. And then Jareth shows up, and he's like, Hoggle, are you helping this girl? And we learn that Hoggle is very afraid of the Goblin King. And he's like, no, I was taking him back to the beginning, like you said. And Sarah's like, what? Which Hoggle is lying to Jareth because he's afraid of him, but Sarah doesn't know that. And the Goblin King is like, if I thought you were betraying me, I'd dump you in the bog of eternal stench. Which, put a pin in the bog. Then Jareth goes up to Sarah like, how are you liking my labyrinth? And she's like, it's a piece of cake. Hoggle's like, you idiot. Don't say that to him. Because then Jareth takes a bunch of time off of her timer. And she's like, wait, that's not fair. And he's like, you say that a lot. I wonder what your basis for comparison is. And then he sends a cleaner through the tunnel. It's like a big contraption with blades on it. So Sarah and Hoggle have to run away from this cleaner. But they make it to safety, and then they climb up a ladder to get out. After running away from the cleaners, Sarah confronts Hoggle, like, how can I trust you now that I know that you're, like, working with Jareth and going to betray me? And Hoggle's like, you have to understand my position. I'm a coward. I'm afraid of Jareth. And Sarah's like, well, then why should I trust you? And he's like, well, you don't have anyone else. And she's like, fair point. They make it out of the tunnel system and into a hedge maze, and Sarah snatches Hoggle's jewels from him like his leverage. Then we meet an old man puppet with a bird on his head. He's unhelpful. A lot of this movie is just meeting puppets. It's like, here's this guy. All right, moving on. But as part of the conversation with this old man, Sarah refers to Hoggle as her friend, which Hoggle is kind of excited about. But then we hear a monster roar, and Hoggle's like, peace out, I don't want to deal with that. So Sarah checks it out alone, and it is a large, furry beast tied up in a tree, and there's these guards who are, like, antagonizing it. But Sarah throws rocks at the guards, and then they leave. She gets the beast down, and we learn that his name is Ludo. Then we make it to 2 more doors. Both of them have knockers on them. So one of them, the knocker, like, goes through his ears, and the other one, the knocker, goes through his mouth. So we get comedy of, like, one of them can't hear, and the other one can't talk. Sarah picks one of the doors to go through, and we end up in this, like, magical forest. But as they're walking, Ludo falls into the ground and, like, disappears. We check back in with Jareth. He's holding the baby, and he's like, I think I'll call him Jareth. He's got my eyes. I don't think my Goblin King voice is particularly good, but at this point I'm, like, kind of committed to doing it. I'm really having second thoughts, though. Then we check in on Hoggle, who's walking by himself, and he can hear Sarah calling for help. So he's about to go run and help her when Jareth shows up, and he threatens Hoggle with the bog again. He's like, I'm gonna tip you into the bog if you go help her. And then he's like, actually, give Sarah this. And he throws a crystal ball at Hoggle, and it turns into a peach. He also says that Sarah could never like a creature like Hoggle. And if she ever kisses you, I'll make you a prince. Really? Prince of the land of stench! Ha 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 ha. Then we check back in on Sarah in the forest, and there's these fire demon puppets. These are rod puppets that are controlled by, like, a person holding, like, a rod with strings and the puppet on it. You know, puppets. And so to hide the puppeteers, they filmed it with the puppeteers wearing black velvet on a black background, and then sort of computer composited the puppets back into the forest. The fire demons sing a song. This song is less good than the songs that David Bowie sings himself. It's sort of a joke in the Labyrinth fan community, like, do you watch the scene with the fire demons or do you skip it? I personally skip it. I find the song kind of annoying. But these fire demons can detach their heads from their bodies and, like, throw their limbs around and whatever. And to try to escape them, Sarah takes one of their heads and throws it. And they're like, hey, you can't throw other people's heads. That's not allowed. So then they chase after her. They're going to try and throw her head. Her head doesn't come off like that. But then, just in the nick of time, Hoggle shows up and pulls her to safety. And Sarah hugs him and kisses his head, which is exactly the thing that Jareth said couldn't happen. And so then the two of them immediately fall onto a ledge by the Bog of Stench. So they don't fall into the Bog of Stench, but they're, like, on a ledge overhanging the Bog of Stench. And then we get a lot of fart noises. That's fun. Then they reunite with Ludo, who's, like, wandered over to the shores of the Bog of Eternal Stench. And the 3 of them make it to a bridge. But the bridge is being guarded by Sir Didymus. He's like a little fox Jack Russell Terrier creature, and he says that he can't let them pass without his permission. So we end up having a little scuffle with Sir Didymus and Ludo. Hoggle pieces out again, he runs across the bridge by himself, and Ludo ends up winning the scuffle with Sir Didymus. But he's still like, you can't cross without my permission. And Sarah's like, well, can we have your permission? Which apparently has never occurred to Sir Didymus. And he's like, yeah, I guess so. So they're going to cross the bridge, but then it collapses. And so Sarah is hanging off of a tree branch over the Bog of Stench. But we learn that Ludo can summon rocks. So he, like, summons up rocks to make a, like, footbridge across the bog. Earlier, when Sarah was throwing rocks at the guards to free Ludo, Ludo was the one who was summoning those rocks over to Sarah. Sir Didymus comes with them, because they're friends now, and we reunite with Hoggle, who's on the other side of the bridge. Hoggle tries to sneakily throw the peach into the bog of stench to, like, get rid of it, but then he hears Jareth's voice being like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And we learn that the peach is going to make Sarah forget things. Our ragtag team is walking through the forest and complaining about how hungry they are, and so Hoggle offers Sarah the peach. And you can tell he's kind of reluctant about it, but he's going through with it anyway. And she takes a bite of this peach and she can immediately tell something's wrong. She's like, Hoggle, what did you do? And then we get like crystal balls that turn into bubbles, and we see a crystal ball with Sarah's music box from her bedroom. The music box is a girl wearing a ball gown, like spinning around. And then we transition into Sarah at a masquerade ball wearing that ball gown. Fun fact, I got into Labyrinth like 2 years ago, and if memory serves, what happened was I saw stills of this masquerade ball scene and Sarah in this ball gown, and I loved it so much that I was like, well, I guess I should watch this movie, because I like this dress. The things that get me to watch movies are very random. I stand by it. I think it looks gorgeous. I think this big hair with these intricate headpieces on it, this gauzy dress with massive sleeves. A lot of times people interpret this dress as being white, which feels like the Mandela effect that happens with Cinderella's dress. Like, Cinderella in the Disney movie, her dress is definitely supposed to be silver. It looks blue in some lighting because it's in shadow. But Disney started marketing her as wearing a blue dress in the Disney Princess line, and now it's just generally accepted that Cinderella is the blue dress princess. The dress in Labyrinth is kind of white, but there's a lot of gray in it and almost some lavender. This outfit has been on display before in like exhibits, and you can look at the actual dress, and it's not a white dress. But I see a lot of cosplays of it where it's like a satin white gown, which looks like a wedding gown, which to me does not communicate the sort of grungy fantasy feeling of the original dress. That's my dress rant over with. It just bothers me. Then we get a montage set to a David Bowie song of Sarah in this masquerade ball, and she keeps catching glimpses of Jareth. There's all these people in fancy, almost like French court-inspired dresses. Venetian, maybe. Sarah eventually reaches Jareth, and the two of them slow dance together. But she starts to realize that something weird is going on. And eventually she runs away and throws a chair at the wall. And then the whole room shatters like a crystal ball. It's probably very basic of me to say that I love this scene. I feel like they did a good job communicating that she is having a dream inside of a crystal ball. Then Sarah falls from the sky from this crystal ball into a junk heap, and she meets this junk lady who's carrying all of her possessions on her back. The way this puppet works is there's a lady in there seeing out of the top of the junk heap and using her hands to manipulate the face of the puppet down below. And Sarah can't really remember what's going on. She remembers that she was looking for something, but she doesn't know what it was. But the junk lady takes her into this like tent in the pile of junk, which looks like Sarah's bedroom. And Sarah at first thinks, oh, thank God, it was all a dream. And she goes to leave her bedroom and then opens the door into the junk heap. And the junk lady's like, no, let's just stay in here. And the junk lady starts to bring Sarah things that she owns, so brings her toys and stuff, and starts to put it on her back. And then Sarah sees the Labyrinth book sitting on her vanity, and she figures out what's going on. She's again able to shatter this room, and then she's reunited with her friends. With the exception of Hoggle, he's like hiding from a distance watching. He feels guilty about the peach thing. But luckily, we've made it to the Goblin City. So we are almost at the castle. We go to the gates of the Goblin City, and there is a giant robot. This is, I believe, a 15-foot puppet made out of foam, and the robot starts attacking them. There's a little goblin in the robot who's, like, controlling it. But then Hoggle swoops in and saves the day. He, like, jumps in and takes over the robot and ends up crashing it. He then, like, doesn't really apologize. He's like, I'm not gonna apologize, but Jareth made me do it. And everyone's like, no, that was very brave what you did just now. We forgive you. And Sarah returns his jewels to him. Then a goblin comes and tells Jareth that Sarah has made it to the city. And he's like, hide the baby. Stop her. So then we get a fight scene where a bunch of goblin guards are fighting with our heroes. And in my opinion, this scene is too long. We're doing like wacky, silly puppet things. There are chickens at some point. Goes on too long. But after this drawn-out battle, our heroes win. They make it to the castle, but Sarah's like, I have to do this final part alone. And everyone's like, okay, but if you need us, you can call for us. So Sarah goes off through the castle, and she makes it to this MC Escher room, where it's like all of these staircases, and the logic doesn't really make sense, and you can't tell which way is which. Escher room always makes me think of the show Warehouse 13. Does anyone else get that reference? I don't know. We get another song montage of Sarah running through this room, Jareth randomly popping up, all these staircases, the baby Toby sitting on a staircase like, I don't know what's going on. This has been a weird day for me. I guess that's just what being a baby's like, though. Like, every day is weird when you're a baby. You don't know anything. Everything's new. Finally, Sarah takes sort of a leap of faith and jumps over to Toby, which then she's in this room that's sort of like stone ruins, sort of a continuation of the Escher room in sort of like a spacey void. Jareth shows up in a new outfit with like a fan blowing on him. And then Jareth says that he's been really generous and did everything that Sarah wanted. You asked that the child be taken. I took him. You cowered before me, and I was frightening. I've reordered time. I've turned the world upside down, and I've done it all for you. I am exhausted from living up to your expectations. Isn't that generous? But Sarah is starting to quote from the book Labyrinth. This is the part that she was quoting in the park. It comes up a few times in the movie, but she always forgets the ending of it. And then Jareth interrupts her. He's like, just fear me, love me, do as I say, and I will be your slave. Crazy thing to say. But then Sarah is able to finish reciting the speech from the book. Through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, I have fought my way here to the castle beyond the goblin city to take back the child that you have stolen. For my will is as strong as yours, and my kingdom is as great. You have no power over me. And then Jareth kind of sighs, and we get like slow motion drapey fabric and a crystal. And then Sarah shows back up at her house with the owl, and then the owl flies out of her front door. She runs upstairs to check on Toby, and Toby is back in his crib, and she gives him the teddy bear from earlier. She's like, here, you can have it. Then she goes to her room and is putting some of her stuff away in a drawer, sort of implying like, I don't need this anymore. And then in the reflection of her vanity mirror, she sees the puppets, and they say goodbye to her. And they're like, offer still stands. If you ever need us, you can call. And she's like, I don't know why, but every now and again in my life, I need you. And they're like, why didn't you say so? And then she turns around and they're all there, like partying. There's like confetti. We zoom out and we see that the owl is sitting outside of her bedroom window, and it flies away, and the movie ends. So this is a weird movie, and I feel like part of it is that there's like two different things going on. There's the crazy ambitious puppet stuff and the thematic stuff. The thematic stuff is about entering adulthood and also about attraction. When we start the movie, Sarah is very much in childhood. She role plays by herself. She has lots of toys. She doesn't go on dates. There's that line from her stepmother basically being like, you should be growing up and going on dates. Like, you're sort of that age now. And Sarah is very immature and whiny in these scenes before the labyrinth. And the labyrinth is sort of her fantasy and her fantasy crush. Jareth is this fantasy pop star who wants to take her away and is like pretty obsessed with her.
That thing that happens with girls at that age who can pull off an illusion that they're an adult is then they end up with the struggle of what happens when an adult man starts to respond to you. Well, everyone in the audience is uncomfortable with that. That kind of has to be true. And it's scary for her. And that's the important part about it that I think my dad was trying to do there. But also all the way through is what's going on here. At first, here's this Jareth. He's the Goblin King. He's scary, he's a bad guy, he's got my little brother, and then this weird tension comes in with, yeah, but he's also masculine, I'm attracted to him, he's male, I'm female, but I'm a child, I wanted to be an adult, I don't want to be an adult, if that's what it means.
I know that Jareth was kind of a sex symbol for the nerdy alternative girls of the 80s. Any clip of Labyrinth online, you're going to see people commenting about how Jareth was their sexual awakening and commenting on the bulge, which crazily, it was an intentional and sort of important part of this theme of like growing up and attraction.
I built the Jareth character. I gave him other qualities. He's also a romantic hero. He's also contemporary with the leather jacket, has armor on it. This refers to 15th century knights. I gave him a swagger stick. It has a crystal ball, but if you look at it, it's a microphone. There's a lot of subtleties going on in that. He is supposed to be a young girl's dream of a pop star. We got in a lot of trouble, about maybe how tight his pants were, but that was deliberate. It's very eclectic.
You should have seen Brian's drawings. Brian's designs was like that codpiece just got bigger and bigger. And my dad was like, "This is great. It's like terrifying to a teenage girl." Like, that was what he was, because he was like, "This is great. This is what the movie's about." She's like 15. She wants to be treated like an adult, but whoa, that thing's scary.
This sort of purposeful sexualization of Jareth. But ultimately, Jareth is a fantasy. He's not real. He even says, "I'm exhausted by living up to your expectations of me." Like, she has invented this guy to be what she wants, or at least what she thinks she wants. The masquerade ball scene is like the fantasy version of sneaking into a college party or a bar as a teenager. Like, you're too young to be there, you want to be there, but it's actually kind of scary and maybe not what you wanted.
We were trying to create a kind of an adult world. The cast are real people here. Sarah is still a child, and she's walking into a very adult situation where she knows she's too young to be there. It's something that's attractive to her, and it's also repellent.
And in the end, Jareth offers her something very intense. Like, the two of us can be codependent and completely devoted to each other, with this weird undercurrent of dominance. And Sarah's like, "No, actually, I'm not interested."
And ultimately, Sarah as a character, because Jareth keeps saying, come on, I'll keep going with you. And she is the one who makes the mature choice.
There's definitely a reading of this movie that is quite predatory, right? There is an age gap between Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie. In one interview in the 80s, David Bowie agreed with a comparison of Labyrinth to Lolita.
Isn't that what Labyrinth is a bit about? Also kind of a fairy tale?
I think that was
Lolita?
in Jim Henson's mind. It was certainly in my mind whilst we were making it. I thought that was probably a plausible subtext to what he was doing, but Jim had a lot of ideas going in that movie. I think maybe one too many, but it became a bit jumbly for me, but it was fun to do, I guess. It wasn't my favourite fun to do.
I believe what they mean by that comparison is this inappropriate age gap and attraction with this guy who's pretty predatory and dominant. I feel like in popular culture, the implication when you reference Lolita is like a promiscuous girl who's like seducing an older man, which was not what was intended in the book Lolita. And I don't think that's what they're saying, not least because that would be a crazy reading of this movie. That's very much not what's happening. Kind of my favorite part about this movie is that Sarah is in control the whole time. Sort of the thematic core of the Jareth and Sarah storyline is the line from Labyrinth that she keeps having trouble remembering. And finally, in the climax of the movie, "You have no power over me." She has created him. He is not real. And he's devoted to her and doing what she wants. She turns him down in multiple different ways. Turning down the original offer of the crystal ball, leaving the masquerade dream sequence, turning him down in the end. There are different ways to interpret their relationship, but my favorite is the sort of metaphorical that he represents struggling with attraction as you get older, which I think their whole dynamic and Sarah's journey through the film is the most interesting part of it. Then there's a lot of puppet stuff happening around that, which I don't dislike. It's just a strange combination. Another layer to Sarah's relationship with Jareth that's kind of subtle in the movie is the backstory with Sarah's mother. So in the movie, we have her father and her stepmother, but in the beginning of the movie, when we pan over her room, we see a scrapbook spread devoted to her mother, and we see a lot of pictures of her mother up on her vanity. And from these, we learn that her mother is an actress and has a new boyfriend who is played by David Bowie. So in the scrapbook and up on the vanity, there are photos of Sarah's mother with her boyfriend who is played by David Bowie, which is a weird layer because that means that Sarah's fantasy villain / crush is her mother's new boyfriend. A little bit Freudian. I will say that most of the things in the labyrinth we see in Sarah's room. It's like when things from real life show up in your dream. It's like the fantasy imagination version of all of her possessions. There's a little bookend of Hoggle. Some of the puppets are there as stuffed animals. There's a little labyrinth puzzle toy. The music box is her in the Masquerade scene. It's very Wizard of Oz in that way. Even the plot of you're in a dream, going on a journey, meeting characters along the way who join your little group, trying to make it to this castle, and then you wake up and return home. And it's also quite Alice in Wonderland-y, especially with how episodic a lot of the puppet stuff is. Like, we meet one, we move on. We meet another one, we move on. Meeting interesting, weird little guys who don't really have plot significance. So this movie did not do amazingly at the box office. The budget was like $25 million. Domestically in the US, it made like $12 million. In total, it made $34 million because it did better overseas. So we broke even, but it didn't do great. Which unfortunately, this movie came out in 1986, and Jim Henson passed away in 1990. So in his lifetime, this movie was not particularly successful and not particularly popular. In later years, it did do well on home video, so VHS and then later DVD releases, and it was also played on TV, where it gained a new audience. But Jim Henson didn't really get to personally witness that. Despite its kind of initial mediocre success, they did make a lot of merchandise for it. I don't know if they thought it would do better than it did, or if they just were gonna release all that merch anyway, but there was a lot of stuff in the 80s. There were 2 different video games, Labyrinth the computer game, developed by Lucasfilm Games and published by Activision. It was a computer game that was mostly text-based, and then a game called just Labyrinth by Takuma Soft in Japan for the Famicom console. There were stuffed animals, a vinyl record of the music from the movie, which at this time, David Bowie was having sort of a bad relationship with radio stations, so he didn't let the music from the movie be played on radio stations.
And David was one of those artists who was having a feud with the music industry right as we were releasing this movie, because there was a period there where the radio stations were refusing to pay to play. So he and some of the very successful artists at the time, just anything that they had control of, they just held it off. So it's a shame, because I think his music is so good, but while the movie was out, it couldn't get any radio play.
Which I think the music maybe would be more remembered as part of the David Bowie canon if it had gotten radio play. I don't know. There was also a Marvel comic adaptation of the movie and a novelization by A.C.H. Smith. This is the 2014 reprint edition. I liked this book. I liked sort of the writing style of it. And it does provide us with more lore about Sarah's mom and boyfriend. Sarah's mom is an actress, and it says that Sarah has clippings from Variety magazine up in her room that reference her mom. Her mom's boyfriend's name is Jeremy. He's described as having blonde hair and wearing a gold chain, which when the Goblin King is introduced in the book, that's also how he is described. He's sort of theatrical and gossipy. He calls things cliche and hammy, which Sarah likes. Sarah likes spending time with her mom and Jeremy. She thinks they're way more interesting and fun than her dad and her stepmom. And it does seem like she has a crush on Jeremy. We get a description of a time when Sarah's mom and Jeremy take her out, and Sarah ends up dancing with Jeremy. Jeremy had danced with Sarah, smiling down at her. He kidded her that a flashbulb meant that they'd be all over the gossip columns next morning. And all the way home he drove fast to shake off the photographers, he claimed, grinning. I think we're sort of implying that Sarah gets a rush from that and thinks that that's exciting. We learn that Sarah also wants to become an actress, and that she's very particular about her room, and we go into a lot more detail this time. She has a system for how everything is set up, like how her books are laid out and all of her toys and whatever. There's a cleaning lady who comes to the house and isn't allowed to come into Sarah's room, and she's even learned some handyman skills so that she doesn't have to ask her dad for help and he can stay out of her room. And then a little thing that goes in hand with Sarah being sort of childish in the beginning is when the stepmom brings up Sarah going on dates. In Sarah's inner monologue, she sort of angrily rants like, well, one day I'll have a secret boyfriend and she won't even be allowed to see him and she won't be able to do anything about it. Even though she's so into bedtimes and developmental psychology, she'll see the two of us written about in Vogue, which feels like a very like teenager response. We also get some Jareth perspective, which is interesting. He says, in reference to Sarah, that she is too old to be turned into a goblin, but too young to be kept by him. Damn her innocent eyes. And we learn that Jareth is excited to have captured Toby because he could be a successor to the throne, and his young blood could be used to refresh Jareth. And Jareth doesn't like that he looks older now. He's like, oh, my forehead wrinkles. This edition has some like bonus content, so some concept art and writings and stuff. If you like the movie, I think you'd like the book. It's a little bit weird reading it, especially since I've watched the movie a lot recently, because the dialogue isn't one for one. It's like slightly different in the book, so it's sort of surreal reading it, being like, that's not what they say in the movie. And it's like, well, no one else is reading this book after having watched the movie like 5 times in a week. Then, years later, in 2006, we get a sequel manga series. So this is a 4-issue manga that I have dropped on the floor. It is a 4-volume manga that is a sequel to the movie, published by Tokyo Pop. They do a lot of like brand collabs. They've done a lot of Disney manga. I have all the Disney Fairies manga in my Disney Fairies shelf. This series was published between 2006 and 2010. The series is written by Jake T. Forbes and illustrated by Chris Lai. The cover art is done by a sub-art artist, Koyu Shure. In Volume 1, it has been 15 years since Sarah went to the labyrinth, and Toby is now a teenager. Jareth has been keeping tabs on him and granting some of his wishes. But Jareth seems like kind of bad at it. He's granting wishes and things are not like getting better for Toby. It's always like bad when he grants him a wish. Like Toby wishes for this new bicycle, and so Jareth just steals it for him, and so now it looks like Toby stole this bicycle and he gets in trouble, that kind of thing. Toby is in a school play, and there are goblins like secretly watching him doing this school play, and Toby can't remember his lines, which I guess runs in the family. He ends up wishing for the play to end, and so the goblins like start a fire. Nothing bad happens, but there is briefly a fire. Sarah picks Toby up. She is now an adult lady with glasses. There's something very 2006 anime about this character design. She takes Toby back to the house. She, at this point, has moved out of the house, but like Toby and the parents. The stepmother has left a note on the fridge, and it's held up with a Kermit the Frog magnet, which I thought was a nice Easter egg. And it's like kind of rude. It's like, if you must eat, then eat the leftover soup from the freezer. Don't make any of the new food. The stepmother is weirdly kind of mean in this manga, which I feel like the point of the stepmother in the movie is that she is not actually mean. All we get from her in the movie is her being upset that Sarah is late coming home to babysit Toby. She said she'd be happy if Sarah went on dates, and she's upset that Sarah hates her even though she's trying. That's all we get. And based on Sarah's characterization, I think we are meant to understand that Sarah's being a little bit unreasonable. So it is weird to me to interpret the stepmother as like actually kind of mean. I feel like someone's gonna argue that she only seems mean because we're seeing this from Toby's perspective, and Toby is also being kind of childish and annoyed by her. I don't think that's what's happening. Anyway, Sarah ignores the weird, mean note, and she makes Toby dinner anyway. And we get a line that Sarah wanted to do theater too, but she grew up and grew out of it. The next day, Toby is taking a math test, and there's an owl outside of the window that's trying to help him cheat, like magically giving him a note with the answers. And so Toby gets in trouble and gets sent to the counselor, and the counselor is Jareth. And he's like, I've been making things happen for you. And Toby is like, yeah, it sucks. Stop doing that. And Jareth says that he's being ungrateful, and he like disowns him. Because at first in the conversation, he's referring to Toby as Jareth, like in the movie when he's like, I'm gonna call you Jareth, like adopting him basically. And now he's like, well, you didn't appreciate me helping you cheat, so goodbye. Then Toby is working on a history paper. He finishes it, but he didn't save it, but he did print it once he finished it, but then he didn't save it, and then the computer crashed. But the paper has been stolen out of the printer by a little goblin. So Toby runs after this goblin into the labyrinth. There he meets Hannah. I'm gonna go with Hannah. She is a fairy who had her wings ripped off. She worked for these shoemakers and they didn't pay her, so she like stole some money, and then in retaliation they ripped her wings off. She's very scantily clad. This is, I guess, a 13 and up manga. There's Skank, who is the same species as Ludo, but like smaller, like a baby, I guess. And Hana rides him around. There's also Scub, who's a goblin. Toby is able to get to the castle to confront Jareth. Then we cut to this evil lady. She's happy that Jareth has disowned Toby, but she sends her guard Esker to kill Toby just in case. Esker goes to the human world, to Toby's room, and is like, he's not there. He must be in Labyrinth. So Esker sends a water demon after Toby. Toby, Hana, Skank, and Scub fight the water demon, and they win. But then they are arrested. Toby is in trouble for sneaking into the labyrinth. I forget why everyone else is in trouble. It doesn't matter. Then we meet a girl named Moppet. She is a human who is dressed as a goblin. She like puts on a goblin mask. And she works for the mean mayor who's named Spittledrum. And she doesn't remember where she's from or what's happened to her. Then Jareth saves Toby from execution and has him stay in the castle. Then Jareth sends out ball invitations to everybody, like including all of Sarah's friends from Labyrinth. And so then there's a masquerade ball, and Toby gets to meet all of Sarah's friends from the Labyrinth. And they're like, did she tell you about us? And he's like, no. And they're like, huh. Toby briefly meets Moppet. Then the evil lady from earlier shows up. She is Mizumi, queen of the kingdom of Moraine. And she has 2 daughters, Moulin and Drumlin. And she goes up to Jareth and is like, hey, fiancé. And he's like, I didn't agree to that. And she's like, well, your kingdom doesn't have an heir, and you know what that means. But then Jareth announces that Toby is his heir, and he's going to be king of the Labyrinth. Volume 2. We get a flashback to 13 years ago. After Sarah left the Labyrinth, Jareth was losing control over his kingdom, and we learn that he had wanted Sarah to be his queen when she was a teenager? Question mark? So Jareth goes to Queen Mizumi, and she wants to marry him. But she also says that she could acquire Sarah for Jareth. And so the 2 of them make a wager. Except not really, because we don't really say what the wager is. We just say the stakes of the wager. So Jareth asks Mizumi to make him an oblation. We don't know what that is yet. And Mizumi is like, if you succeed at what? Then he gets to keep the oblation. And if he fails, at what? Then the kingdom and its king will belong to her. And she gives him 13 years. For what? I was like, have I gone insane? I'm like rereading it. I'm like checking the wiki. I don't think we ever say what they wagered, just that the stakes are the kingdom and its king and this oblation. I guess it doesn't matter because it's been 13 years and I guess Jareth has failed. But his sneaky little trick is since he has made Toby the king of the Labyrinth, the kingdom and its king belong to Mizumi. Now the king is Toby, not Jareth. So Jareth is free. And Toby is now a puzzle piece in this wager. So Toby has to train for his coronation. Mizumi and her daughters stay at the castle to like help him out. He can't tell that they have ill intentions somehow. Then we get the backstory of Moppet. She woke up in the junk fields, no memory of what's going on. Then the junk lady took her and gave her a goblin mask to like hide her ugly human face and sort of took possession of her, like she's walking Moppet on a chain. But then Spittledrum, the mayor goblin, was collecting taxes, so he took Moppet as taxes. So that's how Moppet became Spittledrum's servant. Then Toby's walking around and he finds a museum that's like a Toby museum devoted to his life from all of the spying that Jareth has been doing. And there's a creepy mannequin of Toby that's been made of his like dead skin and fingernail clippings. Then Moppet shows up and is like, you need to leave here while you still can. Because once you're king, you're not going to be able to leave. And he decides, like, maybe this is my destiny and I should try and be king. So I am going to stay. Disregarding Moppet's warnings. Then Mizumi offers to teach him magic, and Moppet's like, I don't trust that evil lady. And Toby's like, well, I don't know. Then we get Toby having king lessons and magic lessons, And we get a backstory for Mizumi. She was in love with Jareth, and then he locked himself in his tower and externalized his power, thus creating the labyrinth. But then, after the whole Sarah debacle, he lost control of it. But now that Toby is becoming king, that power is now his. And Mizumi also wants to find the Pathmaker who controls the labyrinth, separate, I guess, from the power that the king has. Moppet then offers to help Hana find her wings, since Toby's too busy with all of his king stuff. Did I say Toby offered to help Hana? Hana and Moppet steal some keys and they poke around the castle, and they find a bedroom with some fancy gowns and a music box. And Moppet gets a memory of Jareth saying, "Love me," and her saying, "I don't belong here." And Moppet's like, "That was weird. Don't like that. We should get out of here." But it turns out they've been locked in. Then Toby and Mizumi go to a prophecy guy. He's useless. The only important part of this is that part of the prophecy is that the labyrinth will be restored by true love's kiss, which is a part of the prophecy that they don't even read because it got cut off or whatever. Then we realize that one of Mizumi's daughters is the one who locked Hana and Moppet into the castle. I believe this daughter is Drumlin. The difference between the daughters is that this daughter is ugly and fat, because it's 2006. She tries to make the room collapse to kill Moppet and Hana, and then they fight her, and there's some weird inflation stuff that I don't love. Toby is able to magically save them, so that's cool. So Toby has some magic, and also Moppet and Hana are safe. But then Moppet's goblin mask comes off, and it reveals that she's Sarah? ? Exclamation point? What? Then we cut to Sarah in the real world in her apartment. She gets a knock on the door. It's Jareth. Volume 3. We start off with another little flashback. Sarah used to be very theatrical, and she read Toby stories. But when Toby was young, her personality changed, and she got very serious. Back in the labyrinth, Mizumi's daughter is sent to the dungeon for attempted murder. Then Spittledrum, the mayor, shows up and is like, "I think I can explain what's going on with Moppet." 15 years ago, Jareth brought Toby to the labyrinth because he wanted Toby to be his heir. But also, he wanted to lure Sarah there. I thought we were saying in the first volume that he wanted Sarah to be his queen, and this Toby thing was kind of like a plan B. There is precedent for Jareth wanting Toby to be his heir. That's kind of in the novelization, right? But I didn't think that's what we were saying in this manga series. I guess that is what we're saying. Jareth wanted to get Sarah to the labyrinth and make her stay there. No one is actually meant to make it through the labyrinth against his will. He just brought Sarah there because she kept asking, and he wanted to sort of let her putter around in the labyrinth and then give up and then agree to his gift, the dream crystal offer. But Sarah was able to make it through the labyrinth against his will. Her will was as strong as his, and that ruined the labyrinth. So he was losing control of the labyrinth, but things were briefly better after he took that trip to the Moraine Kingdom and saw Mizumi. Spittledrum did not know this at the time, but that is because he brought back Moppet, who is an ablation. An ablation is a broken off aspect of a person. In this case, Sarah. So Moppet is a broken off piece of Sarah, specifically her dreams. I will say it's kind of weird because Moppet has darker skin. I don't know if they just did that to sort of throw us off the scent that this is Sarah. But Moppet was kept prisoner in the castle and then eventually released into the junk fields. I think because being kept prisoner in the castle was slowly killing her because she is her dreams, and so the dreams are being suppressed or something, whatever. So then Spittledrum got Moppet. Jareth found out that Spittledrum has Moppet. He was initially upset, but then he's like, okay, if she starts acting weird, give her this peach. Also, we learn about ablations is that if one dies, then the other dies. But the ablation can be reabsorbed into the original host. And Toby is like, okay, well then let's fix my sister. And then Moppet storms off, because in the process of reuniting with the sister, she will cease to exist. Meanwhile, back in the human world, Jareth is introducing himself to Sarah, and she doesn't remember him at all. He says that they knew each other back when they did theater, and then he sort of forces his way in. He's like, "Can I come in?" "Great." And she's like, "No, this man I basically don't know. He says we know each other, but I don't really know him. We do have a line from her that's like, great, a small feeder nutcase. She offers him tea and some peach pie. She's like, this guy's kind of weird. We learn that she is an English teacher, and she gave up on her dreams of theater. The last time she went to the theater, it was a high school production, and she doesn't remember that it was her brother's high school production, because now she doesn't remember Toby, now that he's been, like, taken to the labyrinth. And Jareth says that Sarah should come and see his new show. Then Jareth leaves for the night. Then we get backstory of Scub the Goblin, which I so deeply don't care about. His mother was a chef. His father sent all of his brothers off to war. He pretended to fight in the war but didn't actually fight, and so like he was disgraced. I don't care. All of the goblin stuff in these books is like so boring. Then Mizumi goes to the dungeon to visit her daughter Drumlin, and then absorbs her daughter Drumlin because Drumlin is an ablation. And the other daughter is like watching from around a corner like, oh no, that means I am also an ablation. Then it's coronation day. Moppet doesn't want to go to the coronation because she's still upset with Toby, so she takes the peach from Spittledrum's like safe or whatever, and she runs off. Then Moulin, the other Mizumi daughter, warns Toby that he should probably leave. There was some kind of wager, again, who knows what, and Mizumi is going to claim you and the labyrinth for herself. And then Toby goes anyway. Then Esker, Mizumi's bodyguard, comes in and captures Moulin. Basically like, you betrayed your mother by like giving Toby the heads up. Then Toby is crowned king and he realizes that he is the Pathmaker. Which it's weird that Mizumi thought that the Pathmaker was separate from the king. Because, like, if the king has the power and controls the labyrinth, then why would the Pathmaker who controls the labyrinth be somewhat... What? I don't know. Then Jareth stalks Sarah for a day. He sees that she's on a date, and he's jealous. Then he goes to a goblin exile named Cobb. Cobb has been guarding a fragment of Jareth's heart for him. So Jareth takes back the fragment of his heart and gets some of his power back. Using this power, he's able to create some sort of magical theater and invites Sarah to come and see a show. Then back in Labyrinth, Mizumi takes over. She wants Jareth's heart and the Pathmaker. Again, doesn't realize that the Pathmaker is Toby. Then Mizumi goes and confronts Moulin, her daughter, and explains that she couldn't deal with the heartbreak of breaking up with Jareth, so she created her daughters to get rid of those icky feelings. I think Moulin represents her regrets or something. She's about to reabsorb her daughter when they are interrupted by Esker. Esker's like, somehow Jareth found some power and he is reunited with Sarah in the human world. And Mizumi's like, go stop them then. And Esker is like, I would, but unfortunately, for some reason, I can't leave the labyrinth right now. It has something to do with, like, Toby controlling the labyrinth or the Pathmaker thing or something. So right now, the labyrinth is sort of locked down. And so Mizumi is like, okay, well, that's not ideal that you can't just go to the human world and deal with this. But what you could do is find Moppet. And if you kill Moppet, that will also kill Sarah. Volume 4, final part. Hana finds Moulin imprisoned in, like, ice or whatever, and they agree to work together, so Hana frees Moulin. Then we see Moppet. She has gone over to the junk fields again, and she takes a bite of the peach, and then falls into, like, a dream sleep. She dreams of her parents together and not divorced, because remember, this is an aspect of Sarah. And her mom is telling her to drop out of school and they can do theater together. Then Esker comes to kill her. She like briefly wakes up and doesn't really know what's going on. But then Hana, Skank, and Moulin come. They are able to imprison Esker and the monsters he brought. But then the ground starts to collapse. Meanwhile, Toby is imprisoned in an oubliette, but then he's brought out to talk to Mizumi. And Mizumi explains to Toby that she was with Jareth for a long time, and she wanted his heart. He said that it was in the labyrinth, and he made her give her word that she wouldn't harm the labyrinth. So she does, and then she goes in the labyrinth to try and find his heart. She couldn't find it, and then Jareth broke up with her because she was kind of shallow. And he's like, I'm kind of over this. So, 1, she can't destroy the labyrinth, and 2, she wants to find Jareth's heart in the labyrinth. But now the labyrinth is crumbling, so Mizumi is like, Toby, we need to use our powers together to save the labyrinth. Not for altruistic reasons, not because she wants to save the people that are in the labyrinth, but because she needs the labyrinth to exist so that she can find Jareth's heart or whatever. And to do this combination of powers thing, the two of them kiss, which is weird. So then Toby goes to save his friends, and Moppet is still in this dream trap. And Hana is like, well, she has to break it from the inside. There's nothing really we can do. And Toby's like, okay. And then he traps them all in a dome to protect them. I guess so that, like, Esker or whoever can't kill them. Back in the human world, Sarah goes to Jareth's show. It is a puppet show of her own life, including the parts where she goes to the labyrinth. And we get a joke that's like, ugh, puppets. Because, you know, it's a puppet show of her own life, and so now she remembers going to the labyrinth as a teenager. And she's like, why didn't I remember? And Jareth is like, I made you forget so that you wouldn't have the pain of knowing failure, which is rude. And like, what do you mean failure? She succeeded. She beat you. What failure? The failure that she didn't choose you? Then he's like, I have enough power for one more wish. And she's like, I don't know what to wish for. And he's like, let me be your guide. And so the two of them go off together. Moppet is finally able to wake herself up from the dream, and she realizes that she has to reunite with Sarah and, like, combine themselves, otherwise Jareth wins. Then Sarah's friends from the labyrinth come and break our protagonists out of the dome, and they help them leave the labyrinth to sort of get on the path to find Jareth and Sarah. Then Toby sees a vision of Jareth, who's like making fun of him, and so Toby wishes for Jareth to get out of his life, which somehow gives Toby like a surge of power. Then Toby tells Mizumi that he wants to rebuild the labyrinth, which she does not like, because if we destroy the labyrinth and rebuild it, then Jareth's heart isn't going to be there anymore. So now she wants to find Jareth. Meanwhile, Jareth has taken Sarah to a void, and they're going to build a world together with, like, magic. They can see that Moppet and friends are coming, but Jareth is confident that they won't make it. So Moppet and all of her friends journey to get to Jareth and Sarah. Some of the friends have to stay behind in the way, so in the end it's Moppet and Moulin who make it to this hall of mirrors. They basically keep running into obstacles that they have to solve, obstacles that are guarding the path to Jareth and Sarah. This hall of mirrors requires a blood sacrifice, because, you know, why wouldn't it? Then Mizumi comes in through one of the mirrors, and Moulin goes to stab herself because that will kill both her and Mizumi. But Mizumi placed enchantments on her so she can't be harmed. Then Moulin shows Mizumi a mirror and like shows her regrets or something. Then Mizumi ends up stabbing Moulin because she's like, now I can feel regret again and I don't need you or something. And she stabs Moulin and I think kills her, which, like, isn't that not allowed by the rules of ablation? Wouldn't that mean that Mizumi also dies? This whole section was confusing. I don't know if we've fleshed out the ablation rules enough for this to make sense, but by stabbing Moulin, that counts as our blood sacrifice. So now Moppet, who is still here, and Mizumi are able to progress past the Hall of Mirrors. The two of them make it to a dead end, and Mizumi has, like, a realization, like, neither of us really know what Jareth wants. And I have enough regrets, so you go on ahead, because if you fail, then Jareth will be lost forever. Or something. I don't know. So she has now had a change of heart, and she's just gonna stay behind. And Moppet's like, that's cool. I still don't know how to get to Jareth and Sarah. And Mizumi's like, oh, well, the ablation and the original are, like, tied together. That's how I was able to show up at the Hall of Mirrors, because I was able to feel that Moulin was there. So then Mizumi goes back to Toby and is like, great news, I'm canceling the deal. You, Toby, the king, and the labyrinth are now free. I've lost this round. I've suffered enough. Goodbye. Then Toby decides, actually, I don't want to be king. There was a thing with the Goblin Uprising. I didn't feel like getting into it. There was, like, stuff with Scub the Goblin becoming a chef. Who cares? Toby giving up the crown gets all of the goblins on his side. So now all of the goblins are allied with Toby. But unfortunately, the labyrinth is still collapsing. Then we check in on Jareth and Sarah. They've almost completely created a world in the time that we've left them. Then Moppet shows up, and she's like, hey guys, everything back at the labyrinth is collapsing. And Jareth is like, Ever since I met you, Sarah, this was always the fated outcome. How could I control the labyrinth if I couldn't control my own heart? And he's like, I have to follow your wishes. And so Sarah says that between her and Moppet, their will is going to be strong enough to save the labyrinth. And Sarah uses her one wish to wish that Jareth becomes king of the labyrinth again. And he's like, I want just one thing in return. And he wants a kiss. But remember, true love's kiss will save the labyrinth. So they kiss, and then they go back to the labyrinth. And Jareth is like, well, Toby, you saved me from Izumi, so I'm going to grant you one wish. And Toby, like, whispers something in Jareth's ear. Sarah's friends from the labyrinth show up, and they're like, are you going to stay? And Jareth is like, yeah, are you going to stay? And Sarah's like, no, I'm going to go back now that I have my dreams back and, like, see how my life goes now. But I'm not saying that our paths will never cross again. I'm just saying I'm going back now. And then we find out that what Toby wished for was for Hana to get her wings back. But somehow there was a mix-up, and Skank, the little creature, gets the wings instead, and Hana's like, whatever, fine. Then Sarah and Toby return to the real world. Toby tries to live his life to the fullest now, and Sarah is writing some sort of fantasy novel. The end. I didn't like this. First of all, there's a lot of, like, goblin time-wasty stuff that's not funny. Secondly, I don't think that ablation stuff necessarily makes sense. I believe this was originally supposed to be 3 volumes, and then it got turned into 4, and it was over the course of, like, multiple years. So, like, were there rewrites? Did stuff happen that made things make less sense? I don't know, but I didn't think it was super internally consistent. And then I also didn't love Jareth in this. He's a very active character. He's doing a lot of scheming, a lot of much more sinister, like making an oblation of Sarah for 13 years and like imprisoning her, stalking Sarah. It's a very different vibe than he has in the movie, which is weird because this is much more of a romantic relationship between Jareth and Sarah. Like him saying that he wanted her to be his queen, and them kissing, and the labyrinth falling to ruin because of his heartbreak over her, being jealous over her boyfriend. So it's weird to make Jareth like a worse version of himself in the version where we're saying, yeah, no, the two of them, it's true love. Weird. I mean, I guess they could have written anything, and this is what they wrote. I must know if you read this manga as it was happening. If you were like a Labyrinth fan or like somehow stumbled across this and it was like 2006 and you were in the manga aisle of Barnes & Noble reading the Return to Labyrinth manga. Please tell me any memories you have of that. There's been a lot of other just like comics over the years, mostly published by Archaea, I think is how you say it. The most sort of fleshed out comic is Labyrinth Coronation in 2018. This is 12 issues, but it's also been published in like volumes that are like combinations of them. And I believe it's being republished this year of like all of the comics in one book. This is a prequel about how Jareth became the Goblin King. So the setup is that this is taking place during the events of the Labyrinth movie. I almost said the Labyrinth manga. Wouldn't that be wild if they were like, no, we need more of this world? During the events of Labyrinth, Jareth is in his castle with Toby, and he's telling Toby a story. So Jareth talks about his parents in 1790s Venice. His father was a rich Englishman named Albert, and his mother, Maria, was a laundry maid who was posing as a countess. And the two of them fell in love and had a baby together. Albert sometimes gets visions of goblins trying to tempt him. He tries to ignore them. But he's in a lot of debt, and he's had a lot of scandals. And now it turns out that Napoleon is coming. So he's got to get out of Dodge without Maria or the baby. He's leaving them behind. And so she's pissed at him. And he's like, listen, you're not even a real countess. How could I bring you back to my family? But he feels kind of bad because he's like, I am leaving my baby. And so he asks the goblins to take the child. I guess because he's worried that Maria won't be able to take care of him because she's like been exposed as a laundry maid. I don't know. So then baby Jareth disappears. Maria is now more pissed. She's like, is this because of those demons you have visions of? And he's like, no, you just lost track of the baby. And she's like, I know that's not true. So then she begs sort of just like vaguely the universe to get her baby back. And even though she doesn't use the right words, something about her, the king of the labyrinth, who at this point in time is the Owl King, he brings her to the labyrinth. The Owl King is old, all of the goblins don't like him, and so he is going to have Jareth be his heir. We've heard this before. He gives Maria 13 hours to make it to the castle and claim the baby. Meanwhile, in the timeline of the movie, Jareth is watching Sarah go through the labyrinth, and he's like thinking to himself, she's not as good as Maria. Like, she's not as good of a heroine as Maria. Which it's weird that this comic is bringing in new weird mommy issues. Because, like, in the movie and the novelization, you're like, Sarah has a crush on her mom's new boyfriend. And now in this, Jareth is comparing Sarah to his mom all the time. He kind of stops doing it at a certain point. But in the beginning, he's, like, comparing Sarah to Maria. Also weird that it's like, this thing that happened to Sarah also happened to my mom. As he's watching Sarah, there's a goblin named Beetleglum who's trying to take care of Toby, and he keeps encouraging Jareth to keep telling the story. Now, we find out that Beetleglum was actually there when Maria was going through the labyrinth, and he was taking care of baby Jareth. Now, in the current timeline, he's taking care of baby Toby, but Jareth doesn't know that. And Beetleglum doesn't know how the story ends, which is why he keeps trying to get Jareth to keep going. So, back in the past with Maria makes 3 friends along her journey, just like Sarah. There's a goblin knight, who it turns out is the Owl King's son, and he betrays Maria, but later makes up for it. He's sort of like a Hoggle parallel. There's a worm, who's very passionate about goblin revolution and very chivalrous. She's sort of like Sir Didymus. And there is a sentient walking rosebush who's very powerful. And it's kind of like Ludo. Throughout her journey, Maria is able to influence the labyrinth by like drawing things with chalk that then like manifest. And the Owl King is concerned about the progress that she's making, so he goes to Albert, Jareth's father, and like goes into his mind and uses things from his mind to try and like fight back against Maria, which doesn't work. But then he puts the two of them in a masquerade dream together. And at first, Maria thinks it's real and that the whole labyrinth thing was a dream. And then she realizes, no, this is a dream. And she's able to break out of the masquerade. We find out that the Owl King actually plans to steal baby Jareth's youth to live and rule forever. Not ideal. Maria is able to make it to the castle and make it to the Owl King. And she's getting the words out, "You have no power over me," which when Sarah says it, she's referencing the book Labyrinth. Maria doesn't know about that. She just coincidentally is saying it because she's yelling at the Owl King. But as she's saying it, the clock strikes 13, and she is too late. She is able to use her chalk to kill the Owl King and stop the youth power transfer, but she's still lost, and so she can't take the baby back. And then Jareth is very coy to Beetledrum about what happened next. And it's implied that Jareth stayed in the labyrinth as a baby and Beetledrum raised him. And we end on Jareth, who it turns out has fantasy versions of his parents in a masquerade ball dream so that they can live together and be happy forever, and he occasionally visits them. And the closing line is Maria in this fantasy masquerade that Jareth has created, saying, "Fantasy can be so much better than reality." The end. I liked this one. I liked the art style a lot more than the manga. It wasn't taking as many risks, which I think in some ways is a good thing. It is sort of a weird premise, the whole mom and Sarah doing the same journey. I didn't love the coy little ending of and then who knows what happened next? It's well, what happened next is the interesting part. I would love to see something exploring how the Labyrinth book got created, because in the movie, Sarah has this Labyrinth book. And so I'd love a comic or something exploring how that book got written, if it's referencing an actual thing that happened in the labyrinth, and how it became a book that was accessible in the human world. And then recently, in January 2025, it was announced that Robert Eggers has signed a deal to write and direct a Labyrinth sequel. This is so far in pre-production, there's no further information as to what this would be. I'm not even confident it's actually gonna happen. I think it could be cool. I'm like generally anti like sequels years later as a cash grab, so I'm not super enthusiastic for that reason. But I know a lot of people are like, no, Labyrinth is perfect, don't ruin it with a sequel. And I'm like, guys, it's Labyrinth. It's not perfect. It's fine. It's not going to ruin the sanctity of the original, I don't think. And I'm optimistic that it could be kind of cool. I think as a writer-director, he's maybe a good fit tonally of like doing something kind of dark and interesting. Who knows? At this point, it would be such baseless speculation for me to say like anything else. And then there's one thing I skipped over. The fan event, the Labyrinth of Jareth Masquerade Ball. This is a fantasy ball started in 1997, sort of inspired by the Masquerade Ball scene in Labyrinth. It was originally held in San Diego, created by Sean Strider, and it was originally meant to be a one-off, but it was so successful that it became an annual event.
I started in the comic book industry, and when I was sitting around making comic books with some of the other artists, I would sit there and say, one day when we're rich and famous, we should throw a masquerade ball, very similar to the movie Labyrinth, or you know, some of the Venetian scenes that we were imitating at the time. Come to be, you don't have to be rich and famous, you just have to have a lot of drive, a lot of creativity, and some really good friends to help you out along the way. And that's pretty much what happened, is we had the opportunity to put this thing on. I was still a teenager, and we decided to do it.
You did this as a teenager?
Yeah.
I'm so unaccomplished.
My last year as a teenager.
Okay, but still, you weren't even old enough to drink yet.
I was not. I needed a couple more years before we could drink. We started the first one. It was in San Diego. We expected about 50 people to show up. We ended up getting about 150. We did it all in about 2.5 weeks.
And it's been running for 27 years. They skipped a year because of COVID. For a few years, it bopped around to different cities. It's been held in Los Angeles for a while now. And more specifically, it's been held at the Millennium Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles since 2015. It is a 2-night event. It's a theatrical experience with like performers and puppets. Has its own lore and storyline. And this video has just been an elaborate setup for me going to this ball. I wanted to make a video on it, but I was like, that's too outside of my normal content. I can't just post a Labyrinth ball video. So I figured I'd do a Labyrinth deep dive and do this as part of it. Now, a little peek behind the curtain. It has not happened yet. I am pre-filming this portion of the video, and then I will go to the ball this weekend, and I will add all that stuff in. But for right now, let's do my pre-thoughts. So I'm gonna try and be informative and helpful. There's not a ton of resources online about this ball because I'm going as a first timer. And because I'm an anxious person, I like to obsessively plan when I do things, do a ton of research, so I feel prepared. That's a little bit difficult with this event. There is the official website, which doesn't have a ton of information. And then there is the Facebook group, which I kind of have beef with Facebook groups. I feel like they're kind of hard to navigate. You can search them, but Facebook's UI makes that not as helpful as I want it to be. You also have to know specifically what you're searching for. This is also a circumstance where you don't know what you don't know. So like you would have to know to search for certain things. So I've searched parking in the Facebook group to see what people have to say about the parking situation. But I'm sure there's stuff that I don't even know that I should be trying to figure out. So I'm gonna try and share as much as I can. So, thing number 1, tickets. This is a 2-night event, Friday and Saturday. You can buy separate tickets, so if you only want to go to one of the nights, or you can buy a combined ticket, which is slightly cheaper than buying both tickets individually. I didn't realize that, so I just bought a Friday night ticket and a Saturday night ticket, and it was like, I don't know, $20 more than if I had bought the combined ticket. Whoops. These tickets are non-refundable. I believe you can exchange them, so like I think I've seen people in the Facebook group have ticket conversations, but whatever. I slightly overpaid. The Friday ticket was $100 and the Saturday ticket was $120. Saturday is considered the better night. Everyone I've seen talk about Labyrinth Ball has recommended that you do both nights, so that's what I'm doing. There are also add-ons for the tickets. So I paid for the Friday pre-show. They have a pre-show for either night, but I figured Friday would be more helpful. Here's the description of the pre-show. Pre-show begins at 7 p.m. Join our talented artists for a tour of the ballrooms featuring exclusive acts, lively interactions, and a bit of storytelling along the way. Explore the realms, learn the lay of the land, ending your journey with the traditional champagne toast to signify the gates opening for the rest of our guests. This was $60. I also bought the Friday tea room experience. Again, you could do this either night. I maybe in hindsight should have picked Saturday night. I don't know. I'm worried Friday might be a little bit overwhelming, so I maybe should have saved the tea experience for Saturday. I don't think I want to do both nights, and I don't know if I can change it. The description for the tea room: a royal tea room where exotic teas and culinary delights await. Reservation times made on site at tea room after entry. This was $75. I did get an email from them like yesterday asking for me to pick between the standard menu and the dietary preferences menu. So like gluten-free, vegan, and nut-free, I think. I just chose the standard menu. There's also an add-on for during the day on Saturday called Puppetry in the Realms of Cipher. The Realms of Cipher is something to do with the lore. I don't have a lot of lore info for you right now. So because this is a labyrinth event, there are puppets. And so this add-on, you get to meet some of the puppets. Meet the puppets of the Labyrinth Masquerade Ball up close. Founder Sean Strider delves into some of our favorite large-scale puppets, from idea to creation and everything in between. This is a rare opportunity to be eye-to-eye with our largest puppet, Sparkles, the Frost Dragon. This is $50. I have not booked it yet. My worry is that I'm going to stay up late at the ball and then be asleep when it's happening because it's at like 10 or 10:30. I sleep a lot, so it's entirely likely I will still be asleep when this is happening. But maybe I should get up, go to it, and then just take a nap after, because I think it would be cool to see the puppets. I know that Sparkles the Dragon is a very popular character among the Labyrinth people. And then something I did not do is they have VIP tickets for Friday and Saturday. These include a ticket and a pre-show ticket, some goodies, access to balcony seating on the pavilion level of the Crystal Ballroom, and exclusive access to the Phoenix Key Lounge. Don't know what that means. It was $260 for Friday and $300 for Saturday. I did not do that. Now, the ball is being held at the gorgeous, historic Millennium Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. A lot of things have been filmed there, such as the way when you're a nice location in Los Angeles. There's also, I think, some speculation that it's haunted. Haunting is not real, so I'm not worried about that, but you might be. Now, because this is a multi-day event, many people are going to be staying at the Biltmore Hotel. I think there are other nearby hotels that you could stay at also, but obviously you want to be at the Biltmore. That's where the event is, and it looks cool. So to book a room at the Biltmore, they have a group rate. So you book through the link on the website, and then you get a slightly cheaper room rate. I did this a while ago. I don't remember how far in advance I had to do it. I'm going to be staying in a club level room for 2 nights. It is $249 each night for a total of $578. I swear to God, when I was booking this, the club level room was like the same as the normal room. So I was like, well, obviously, let's do the club level room. And then I'll get to like have a couple more perks. I would not have bothered if there was a price difference. And I remember thinking, is this a mistake that they're like basically the same? I don't know. I'm gonna do it. Now, the final thing I need to worry about right now is costuming. So I almost went to this event in 2023. I knew about the event. I was excited about it. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And then I went with my friend to a Barbie movie event because the Barbie movie was happening at that time. It was like a little pop-up exhibit thing. LA gets a lot of those. And I found it a little bit overwhelming, like how crowded it was. And I was like, if I find this overwhelming, I probably shouldn't do the Labyrinth Ball. And so I chickened out and I didn't do it. Tickets were non-refundable, so I wasted like $200 and I just sort of retreated in shame. This time I'm choosing not to think about the fact that it is crowded and might be overwhelming. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But as for the costuming, I had already done some costuming stuff 2 years ago. However, My weight fluctuates. I'm not going to talk about this in any specific detail if this is like a triggering topic for you. But I had gotten some gowns back in like 2020 when I had a bit of a shopping problem. And then I gained weight. So then in 2023, they did not fit me. And I have since lost weight again. And so they would have fit me. But I did some stuff to them. Oh, I also thought I was going to make a video about it back in 2023. So I did film some B-roll of myself in 2023 of these gowns. So we get to see that, which is exciting. So here are the options. Gown number 1 is the cerulean gown. I bought this back in 2020. It's like a vintage bridesmaid dress. I like it because it kind of looks like the live action Cinderella dress. However, in 2023, it did not fit me. So my plan was to seam rip the side panels of the bodice and add in extra fabric. So I took a seam ripper to it and then did not do anything further. So I damaged the dress and then did not fix it. And so now it could have fit me in the state it was in if I just hadn't touched it. I did the easiest part of the project, ripping it, and then didn't follow through with the hard part of the project. And now I'm left with a mess. Could I sew it back together? Yes. Do I want to? Not particularly. Not right now. And also, I seem to have ripped a part of it that's not on the seam, like just in the middle of a piece of fabric. It's like ripped in half. I don't know what happened there. I don't remember. It was 2 years ago. That's gown number 1. Gown number 2, Ice Princess. This is, I think, like a vintage prom dress from like the early 2000s, maybe. It is pastel lavendery, and it has beading of snowflakes on the bodice and on the skirt. This dress is fine. It fits me currently. It's a little bit big. I've never loved it. I got it because I was going to use the fabric to make a cosplay of Sarah's dress in Labyrinth. Because you know my whole rant about how it's actually grayish lavender and not pure white. So I was going to use this as like a base layer and then put more fabric over top of it. I wasn't paying that much attention when I bought it. The construction of the dress is not a skirt with a bodice. It is a bunch of long panels that go the entire length of the dress. So it's very hard to manipulate because it has this sort of gentle sloping A-line. I would want it to have a much fuller skirt. There's not really enough fabric for that. You'd have to like take it apart and like add stuff and whatever. It was cheap. I got it on like Poshmark or something, so it's not like a huge loss. But I did never buy it with the intention of wearing it as is. I don't love it. I don't know how I would style it. I think of it as like an ice princess thing, but I don't know how I would accomplish that. The benefit of this dress is that it is currently finished and wearable. Option number 3, Black Stars. This is a dress by the brand Sister Jane. It originally had a super high neckline and long sleeves, and I thought it looked bad on me. I'm 5'4", so I'm not like super petite, but I did feel like I was sort of swallowed up by the dress. So my genius idea was to take the neckline off and take the sleeves off, so then have it be sort of an off-the-shoulder, more elegant silhouette. I was going to use all the extra fabric from taking it apart to sort of finish off the neckline so it looked less like it was unfinished, because it is unfinished because I took it apart. And then I was going to style it with a corset. It also would have needed to be hemmed because it's too long on me. The problem is now it is much too big for me and it doesn't have anything to keep it on me. Before, what was keeping it on me was like my body. If it had the neckline and the sleeves, it would be like hanging on the shoulder. You know how clothes work. It can't do that right now, so I would have to do something about that, like add straps or something. I don't want to. I do like it in theory. I think the fabric is pretty. It is currently not wearable. Also, if I remember, it's kind of itchy, which if there's one thing I can't abide, it's clothing that is itchy. And then option number 4, red fabric. So when I was working on the cerulean dress, I was like, maybe it would just be easier to make a dress from scratch using this dress as a pattern. And then I could make it slightly bigger so that it would fit me. And so I'm not trying to dismantle it and shove in extra fabric panels to make it fit. I would just make it so that it had the panels and does fit. I have crafting delusion, so I still think I could do this. However, currently, all I have is some red fabric that I've purchased because I thought it would look good in red and be sort of like vampire-y. I have like a red satin for the base and then an overlay fabric because I think that's part of what makes the cerulean dress look nicer, just it having slightly more texture. This is currently not a dress at all, though. This is just fabric. It's less of a dress than other things on this list, which are already not dresses. So those are the options. And like maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I was like, hey, I should check on the gowns I have for the labyrinth ball, just like see how they fit. And then I had the realization of like, oh no, maybe only one of these is a dress that I can wear in its current state. Oh no. So what do we do? Oh, did you say buy 2 more dresses? I love the way you think. So I bought more dresses. The reason I bought 2 is because it is a 2-night event. A lot of people do 2 outfits, and a lot of people do 1 outfit that they wear both nights. Most of the people attending this event are older than me, so like millennial Gen X, and very skilled at costuming and cosplay. There is a photo gallery on the Labyrinth website. There's a lot of photos that people post in the Facebook group, and you look at those and you're like, wow, that's really good. That's a very impressive garment outfit ensemble that you have created. I'm not gonna get anywhere near that. So I guess part of me thought like it'll be better to have like 2 okay outfits than just like 1 okay outfit, because at least I get to wear something like new and exciting each night. Because if you have like a spectacular, amazing thing, then like, yeah, wear it both nights. Get your mileage out of it. You worked really hard on it. Also, you probably don't have time to make 2 gorgeous works of art. But like for me, it's not gonna be that. So I may as well do 2. Also, I'm kind of worried I'm gonna get really sweaty and then not want to rewear the dress the second night. So what have I purchased? Number 1, the gold dress. This dress is like kind of gold. It's a very tarnished bronze, but I think of it as the gold dress. It is, I think, a bridesmaid dress or a prom dress or something. I got it on Depop. It looks very fantasy with the sort of basque waist, a very full skirt. There's like 3 layers to the skirt. There's like an under layer that gives it structure, almost like a crinoline type thing, and then the satin and then the overlay. The outfit I have designed for this dress is royal themed. So I got a crown. This is like a men's king crown so that it doesn't have to be like a tiara that's like a headband and like squeezing my head. A men's crown just kind of sits on top, so it's going to be more comfortable. I have necklaces, which my mom happened to have and happened to go with the color palette well enough. And I got a purse to go with it. This does not have pockets, and I need to have a purse because I need to be able to carry my phone and like have things with me. The very fancy cosplayers attending this event are like, just add pockets to your ensemble. And I'm like, I don't know if I am confident enough to do that. Because part of me feels bad. This is like a great dress and I don't want to like attack it with a seam ripper and like ruin it. I got an initial bag. It was too small. So then I got a new bag, which it's fine. It'll work. So that outfit, as of right now, is basically done. The only issue is that it is too long, and so it needed to be hemmed. And so my mom took it to a dry cleaners to get altered. I had to like get my roots done. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go do that. You go on this dress quest and see if you can find somewhere that will alter it in time. So I'm gonna get that dress back Thursday, which the ball is on Friday. Dress number 2, elf dress. This is an amazing find. This is just some sort of evening gown, but it looks so elfy with the like sort of bodice piece that goes over the bottom, has almost a leather look to it, and then the lace up. Fantastic. So good, so fantasy inspired, because you can just show up in like normal evening wear that's like not fantasy inspired, but that is lame and I don't want to do that. So I was like, oh, how exciting, this like elf looking dress. So for that, I have a like belt bag, very Ren Fair, you know, a necklace that I already had because I went through like a witchy necklace phase, and a flower crown. So that one is all ready to go. That one's done. I keep saying my only goal with these outfits was I didn't want to be the worst dressed person there. I want people in their spectacular outfits to look at me and be like, well, she tried, and I think I accomplished it. So at this point, all we have to do is wait for the dress to be done getting hemmed. I have to pack, and then on Friday, I drive down. Crazy, crazy, crazy. It's so soon. So I will check back with you when that happens. Hail and well met, gentle viewer. I have returned from my journey through the realms of Cypher, and I shall now regale you with tales of my travels. That's kind of the vibe, by the way. So I got back yesterday. I needed a little bit of time to write out my thoughts, but I am now ready to update you. So on Thursday, I got back the altered dress. This one. It is a perfect length, so that worked out awesome. It was $85 to get it altered, which is how much I paid for the dress. Then on Friday, we drove to the Biltmore. It was very trafficky, and I got myself checked into the hotel and checked into the Labyrinth Ball. Hello, Captain's Log. So, I've checked in successfully. I'm in my hotel room, obviously. Thoughts about the check-in process. Thing number 1, parking. You have a couple different options for parking. First is parking at the Biltmore. So there is self-parking, which is $50 per night, or valet, which is $70 per night. You can also park off-site. Pershing Square is right across from here, and a lot of people use that parking lot, which is like an underground parking structure. I chose a secret 4th thing, which is I had my mom drive me here. I was getting stressed out about driving and parking because I don't like doing either of those things. So instead we did this. I was a little bit nervous because that means I won't have a car while I'm here, so I feel a little bit stranded, but I think it'll be fine. Maybe because it was my first time doing it, or maybe because I just hate going places and doing things. I found the whole driving and parking process unenjoyable, even though I wasn't even really the one doing it. I got kind of motion sick in the car. It was very trafficky. I'm glad it's like generally not my problem. And hopefully being picked up on Sunday will be easier because it won't be like in the middle of the day. Next thing, checking into the event. So walking into the Biltmore on street level, at least where I did it, you actually aren't on the lobby level. You have to go up another level. So I did that. And there was another person coming from the same parking as us who was also going to the Biltmore, so she kind of like helped. Then you go to the room that has the hotel check-in desk, and they have set up tables off to the side, all manned by people in whimsical fantasy costumes. And once you wait in that kind of long line, you get to the front, and then you either show them the QR code from your ticket, or you show them your ID. So I got the wristband, which serves as my ticket for both nights, and then also a card which denotes that I am in the pre-show. After that, I actually checked into my hotel room, and then I came up here, which is the top floor of the hotel, which is the like club level. It's a nice room. You can tell it's an old building. Like specifically, I noticed the bathroom door looks like old. And I'd also say that the entire hotel is kind of warm and muggy. I think partially because there's a lot of people here, but I think also just it might be like that in general. The AC in this room is at the lowest setting it could be at, and I still was like, let's take these shoes off. So it is currently 5:30. Pre-show starts promptly at 7. I think I want to eat a little bit at something before then and then get all like glammed up. Because of like me and my anxieties, I'm like, I don't want to leave the hotel room and like walk around. That's scary. But in my head, I just keep repeating, like, I'm doing investigative journalism. I'm reporting on this for other people. And that's making me, like, a little bit less stressed out about it. I don't know. It sounds silly when I say it out loud. Is this vlogging? Is this good? I don't know. I did a bad job going anywhere. By that, I mean, I did not go anywhere. I laid here and I kind of dozed off. So it is now 6:25 to be at pre-show at 7. So we need to start getting ready, I guess. I don't take that long to get ready, but we still need to start because I want to go down there early because I don't really know where I'm going. Very proud of how I packed. I used packing cubes, and so there's one cube that's full of the, what did I call it earlier? The elf outfit, whatever I called it. The elf outfit, and one that has the gold outfit, and in the cube with my pajamas has the like headpieces, like the crown and the flower crown. I think I want to do the gold outfit tonight. I don't know. That was my original plan, so maybe let's just go with that. So then it was time to start getting ready for the pre-show. At this point, I was kind of starting to get stressed out, which was exacerbated by the fact that I was running a little bit behind. And I felt like I was doing a bad job vlogging, which that feeling would continue and persists even now, because I don't think I did a good job. I'm not that good at vlogging yet. I feel like I did a bad job. I kept forgetting to get footage, or like getting footage of the wrong things. Like, I got multiple clips of, like, the same thing over and over, and then there's stuff that I don't have any record of at all. I think I needed, like, a checklist, something to, like, keep track of it. And then also I feel like my footage just looks bad because the ball itself is not an amazing place to film. It's very busy, there's a lot of people, and then there's, like, mood lighting everywhere. Like, everywhere's kind of dim, and there's a lot of colored lights, which I'm sure there's some camera with some settings that you can do to make it look good. I was just using my phone camera because I didn't want to, like, bring this camera with me. So I feel like in the footage I did get, you can't really see that much. And then I also felt really rude, like, filming. I was trying to, like, do it really fast because I didn't want to film people who, like, hadn't given permission. And that also contributed to, like, all of my shots are, like, slightly too fast. Like, slightly too short. But it's a good thing that this is not just a video about the labyrinth ball. Like, it's a video about labyrinth, and this is a segment about the labyrinth ball. Because if I'd tried to just do a video about the labyrinth ball, it probably would have been short and bad looking. But instead you have 2/3 of a pretty good video that's gonna hopefully make up for this. And then I was also stressed out the whole time because I feel like I'm bad at being alone. I don't know how to articulate it. I feel like when I'm left to my own devices, I do a bad job, like, taking care of myself. I sort of retreat inwards. So I think that was also a contributing factor of why I was not feeling great at the time. Here's the dress. Okay, necklaces are on. I might want to put my hair like half up or something. I'm worried it's gonna be very warm and I'm gonna want it out of my face. I don't know. All I have is this scrunchie. I'm gonna do makeup here, but I think the mirror is too far away. Currently, my concern is that I might be bad at vlogging and bad at attending events in a way that is interesting to anyone, and bad at attending events in general, and maybe also just bad at being a person alone. You feel me? This is not the perfect angle, but that's fine. I brought 2 single eyeshadows. This one is a duochrome from Tara Moon's Cosmetics, so it's like brown and green and red. I figured it would be kind of grungy and cool looking and match both of the outfits. I really want to limit the amount of makeup I'm wearing because I think it's going to be hot and uncomfortable. So I'm not going to do any powder even though I brought it. Because at this point, I think I'm just going to be sweaty and oily and we're going to be fine with that. Okay, here's the full fit. Bag has earbuds, travel tissue, room key, credit card ID, and lipstick. Chain of the bag is being held together with safety pins because it is naturally way too long, and so I wanted it to hang here. I don't know. I guess this is good. Pre-show starts in like 10 minutes, so I'm gonna head down there. I don't know what I got myself into with this. So I'd gotten kind of grumpy, and I went downstairs, and I got in the elevator to go downstairs to the event. And then I forgot my little pre-show card that like proves that I bought a ticket for the pre-show. So I had to go back up. I forgot the card that says I have pre-show, so I'm definitely gonna be late. And I was like, now I'm gonna be late. Everything's ruined. But it was fine. I made it. So for the pre-show, the Labyrinth Ball kind of takes over the whole hotel. They take over a bunch of the ballrooms. And so we all went into one ballroom, and there were a bunch of performers singing as we walked in. Now, what I learned about this event is that it is basically all run by volunteers. There's like hundreds of volunteers involved every year. People who do the setup and the takedown, the art and the props, some level of costuming, I think. People in these like guard outfits who are sort of the security checkpoint, checking if you have your wristband or whatever, and the performers. Which logistically, I'm not sure how all that works. I don't know how far in advance they're prepping all this stuff, how many people are involved in each of the different things. Oh, there also must be a team of writers. I don't know how many people are involved in that. I don't know if they're volunteers. Which, for the performers, they have to have rehearsed, so I don't know how far in advance they're doing rehearsals. I don't know how that's coordinated. Someone has to be doing the choreography for that. I ended up talking to a volunteer at some point, and she was telling me that this event, like, barely makes money. I'm assuming it has to break even and probably makes a small amount of profit, but it is expensive to run. They're like renting out this whole hotel, even though a lot of the like labor is volunteers, still there's stuff that costs money. So I think the ticket cost covers that stuff, but this is not a money-making scheme, which I wish I had talked to more volunteers and asked a ton more questions. Hopefully some of them will watch this video and can share some of their insights, since I sort of failed at being a journalist. But the level of coordination is so impressive. The fact that all of this runs so smoothly. I think a lot of it is just people who want to get involved and are really passionate about the event, which is very sweet. The event definitely has a lot of built-up goodwill. So anyway, we went into this ballroom, which the Biltmore refers to this as the Gold Ballroom. It has a lower level and an upper level, and so we all went up to the upper level where they had a performance for us. I could not see this at all because I was behind people. My understanding was that there was a wizard and he was opening the portals to connect the realms for the purposes of the Labyrinth Ball, because for the Labyrinth Ball, all of the different realms are connected through portals, and that's how there's all these different fantasy creatures all converging at the same time. And so various people came with torches, and the wizard lit the torches, and that, you know, did magic or whatever. Then the guy who runs the event, Sean Strider, came out and like said hi, which that was very exciting for me because I've now researched this event and I'm like, oh, it's the guy. Then we went to the next ballroom, which is what the Biltmore refers to as the Crystal Ballroom. Then some performers did some like interpretive dancing that represents something that's going on in the realms of Cypher right now. At this point, I knew like none of the lore, so I'm like, great, cool, yes. Love it. Then Sean came out and talked for a bit, and he was talking about how this year is the end of like a 7-year story arc, because there's a linear story that's going on in the realms of Cypher. And next year, or like soon-ish, they're going to start focusing more on the fairies. I recorded Sean talking for a little bit, and then he, I think, looked directly at me, and I panicked. I was like, ha! No. I mean, it probably would have been fine if I had recorded the whole thing. And I kind of wish I would have, so I would have remembered exactly what he said. But again, feel really weird recording. Feel real awkward about it. Then we got a performance from the Goblin Cabaret. There is a group of performers who dress up as goblins and do like little comedy performance things. So this was a very slapsticky lip sync routine. And there's a Goblin Cabaret room during the event. So this was sort of like a preview of like, this is what goes on in that room. Then they brought out Sparkles the Dragon, the animatronic puppet. And everyone went crazy. People love Sparkles. I also love Sparkles, but sort of this whole pre-show felt like I was walking in on an inside joke. Like, I knew about Sparkles from the research beforehand, but if I hadn't known, I'd be like, wow, these people are freaking out for this dragon. Instead, I was like, no, I'm aware of the dragon. Yes, cool. My mom compared it to, in Parks and Rec, Lil Sebastian, of everyone freaking out for this horse. Sparkles is kind of a neck-up dragon. There's not any more dragon. But I think the head is all you need. You can sort of imagine the rest. Sort of a vanishing point that goes on into the distance. Sparkles comes out again later in the Crystal Ballroom and does like performances. So this was sort of a preview of that. Then we went to another room, and this room was down 2 floors. So you go down 1 floor, and there's like a little area there, and then you go down to what they call the Biltmore Bowl. The Labyrinth Ball calls this the throne room, and we got to see a choreographed ballroom dance. Then Sean took some questions. I think everyone felt like sort of nervous to like ask anything. And I, at this point, didn't like have any questions because I was like, I don't know what's happening. But someone asked him for advice for someone coming for the first time. I don't remember exactly what he said. He definitely said to go on a quest. And I was like, a quest? What are you what? Put a pin in that. We'll get to that later. I believe he mentioned going to see the dragon dance. And he definitely also said to put your phone away and try and experience the event. And in my head, I was like, yes, totally. Phone? What phone? I don't have a phone. Then we did a champagne toast, which I did not partake in. and then it was time for general admission to come in. So before I talk about my first night, I would like to talk about the various different rooms so that if I refer to them, you sort of know what I'm talking about. Generally, the things in these rooms are going to be dance floors, what I am going to refer to as quest stations, little areas run by the volunteer staff that are involved in the quests, and assorted other activities. I did a bad job getting B-roll of a lot of this stuff, as I said, so I'm going to supplement a little bit with pictures from the Facebook group, which I will be crediting, and images from the Biltmore website, which is just going to show all the rooms empty, but at least then you'll get an idea of like what things kind of look like. So, on the lobby level, there is the Emerald Room. This has the post office where you receive and return quests. It's sort of like the main hub for the quests. There's a mini bar where you can get drinks. The Biltmore itself has like a bar restaurant on the lobby level, but this is like another separate one. There are booths off to the side of the room. One of the booths has a display of the Sparkle the Dragon plushie, which was available for sale. This was sold out. I thought about ordering it when I was checking out, but that was like months ago. I didn't know. I was like, maybe I'll get one later. Couldn't get one later. Should have got it then. One of the booths is also the Cipher Trading Company, which is a quest station. And there is a Birds of Prey photo opportunity. Then there is the Gold Room, which was the first room for the pre-show. The Labyrinth Ball refers to this as Anhavia, which is the fairy room. There's a lot of magical forest like set pieces and tableaus. And one of them has a little baby dragon, which was very cute. People were using the upper stage area mainly for photo ops, though I do think that there were performances there sometimes. I never saw one, so I don't know. There's also the Fairy Post Office Outpost and a fortune teller stand. The next room is the Crystal Room. This is basically just a big dance floor. There's a stage at the front where there are performances. I never saw a performance during the event, but I did see them during the pre-show, so I felt like I kind of got the vibe of them. And this is also where Sparkles comes out. There are balconies in the Crystal Ballroom, and those are for VIP guests. There are also smaller rooms on the other side of the lobby. One of them is the Wizard's Sanctum, which is across from the Emerald Room. And this is basically a game room. There's multiple tables set up to play dice games. Because, you know, that's kind of the demographic we're working with here. There's also the library. This room has a lot of props set up, which give a lot of lore and story text. Because I'm a very crafty person, I was like, who made this? Someone had to bookbind and make a little fantasy tome artifact. Interesting. There were also 2 librarians stationed in that room, and I think 2 wizards? I didn't really end up talking to them, so I don't know. Also on the lobby level, there is the garden, which is an outdoor courtyard. This had pizza for sale, which was made in a dragon-shaped oven. And at the end of the courtyard was the docks, which had the pirates. Also on the lobby level, I believe, is the Phoenix Key Lounge for the VIP guests. I was not VIP, so I didn't see that. I didn't fully understand where it was. Then, downstairs 1 level, there is the Goblin Cabaret Room, which is a smaller room. A lot of people really like it because I think it's the most air-conditioned place in the event. And this has live performances all night. So, live music, puppets, goblins. An intimate theater experience is really not my vibe, so I did not hang out in there. I went in to get some B-roll of it, and I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently on iPhones, they now have Flash on for videos. I know that Flash comes on when you're taking photos, and like you can turn it off, but I didn't know that the Flash would come on when I was taking a slow panning shot. It scared me, I was very embarrassed, and I ran out of there. It was like me with my phone. I'm like, whoa! Also on this level, there is the market area, I guess. There were multiple vendor booths that are selling like fantasy wares. So guests had, I guess, like rented booth space to sell their fantasy necklaces and diadems and whatever. Then downstairs 1 more level, the Biltmore Bowl. This is 2 rooms. This is the throne room, which we went into. But to get into the throne room, there's a long room before the door to the throne room, so it's like the throne hallway. I don't think that room had an official name. It's just the room before the throne room. But that room had tables for dice games, again. I did end up playing dice games here, and in the Facebook group, I saw a photo of myself playing dice games, so that was very exciting. Because I looked very lame compared to everybody else. So no one was like asking me to take a photo. So I wasn't expecting to see myself in anyone else's photos in the Facebook group, because it's mostly just like people taking photos of each other in costume. But there I was. Against the wall, there is the Wizards Guild, and there's 2 setups for fortune tellers there. At the end of the room, there is a booth to register for your tea time, because you have to register for when you want to go have your tea that you have purchased. And then there's also a little booth to check in for your tea. Next to the booth where you register for your tea, there's the Archaeologists Guild. Then in the throne room, there's an upper part of the room, which is where the tea was held. And on the lower part of the room, there was a dance floor. I know that they taught group dances, like you could join in and someone would instruct, like, doing some sort of dance. I never got to do that. I saw one of them happening while I was having tea, but then after that, I, like, never was in the room while one was happening. Sean did say in the pre-show that they don't post schedules online or anything. He said something like they want it to be an adventure, they want you to explore, like, wander into things, find things. I think that's kind of silly, because what that means is that sometimes you miss things. I think as a first-timer, I went into this with, like, quite a bit of information, because I was really looking at that Facebook group. I got some information from the pre-show, but even then I still feel like I didn't know everything that was happening. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm missing stuff, because I felt like everyone else had been doing this for years and years and, like, knew everything and, like, knew where they were supposed to be, and I had no idea what I was doing. Which I'm sure the argument is like, well, just, like, ask people and, like, I don't know, I guess. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't even know what to ask. It's like that lady in the pre-show who asked, what's some advice for a first-timer? Because it's like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to figure out. So Friday night, we finished the pre-show, and then I went out of the throne room into the room before the throne room, and I saw the booth to sign up for the tea slot, so I was like, I may as well do that while I'm here. It was funny seeing a lady, like, with ye old magical MacBook. I gave her my name, and she looked up my ticket. And she was like, for how many? And I was like, for 1. And she was like, oh, for 1, I can get you in right now. And I was like, yeah, all right. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. Because also at this point, I'd only had like a protein bar. So I was like, yeah, let's eat. That seems like a good idea. So then I went to be checked into tea. And I happened to get there at the same time as another woman who was going alone. So then we were sat at a table with a group of 5. So each table sat 8 people. So it was 5, 1, 1, and then an empty seat. Each tea is an hour-long slot, and the wait staff for the tea is just Biltmore employees, not like Labyrinth volunteers. And I wonder what the Biltmore employees are thinking. I mean, at this point, they've done it at the Biltmore for like 10 years, so they must be used to it by now. Like, oh yeah, it's those 2 days in August where those weirdos show up. I did realize during the tea, I was like, oh, this must just be what Biltmore has for the Biltmore afternoon tea, because Biltmore hosts an afternoon tea every weekend, I think. Because I looked at their afternoon tea online and I was like, that looks like what I ate at the Labyrinth tea. I was like, oh, duh. They're not, like, making a bespoke tea. It's just like, here's the little finger sandwiches we make for tea. Though the tea options are specialty. Specialty. Haha. An event volunteer said to us that all of the tea is custom blended, and I believe that you could purchase it, like, at the tea check-in booth. There were 6 different tea options, and he did specifically say to us not to start out with the tea called Prince, because that would blow out our palate. But then a waiter came by, and he had Prince, and he was like, do you want? And I was like, yes, I don't know. Which was a mistake, because it was very gross. It's described as a smoky tea. I didn't know what that was going to mean. Turns out, bad. Bad and campfire tasting. Each of us got a plate of, like, little savory things and a plate of little, like, sweet treats. And then there were scones also available. I only ended up filming the savory plate of sandwiches because I was trying not to be like rude and like film around the table. Trying to surreptitiously film my plate. The woman who was alone next to me was the volunteer who I talked to. Because I was like, hello, what's your name? Which it was kind of loud in there, so it was kind of hard to hear, but she gave me a lot of very interesting information about the ball and about volunteering. And she also gave me a trinket. So Labyrinth Ball has a culture of trinket trading. I believe this is from like Ren Fair culture or something. I don't know. I don't get out much, so this is new to me. But people bring little trinkets to give out to people. I ended up with a lot of stuff. This stuff is all from separate people, but I just like put it in the bags to like keep it contained. This is like a little crocheted flower someone gave me. And then this bag of stuff was from a lady who was dressed up as Peaches and Cream Barbie, which I had seen her post in the Facebook group, so I knew she was going to be there. And I saw her walking past me, and I was like, are you Peaches and Cream Barbie? And she was like, yes! And then she gave me this bag of peach-themed things. I'm not exactly sure how many attendees there were, because I do feel like I saw people in the Facebook group that I like never actually saw in person. Like, I think there were at least 2 different Tinkerbell outfits that I never saw in person. A lady who said she was dressed as Queen Clarion. I would have died to meet her. But I think that's just what happens when your event is spread across so many different rooms. There are some people who I feel like I kept bumping into and kept seeing out of the corner of my eye, and there are people who I think I never saw even once. So after tea, I wandered around the different rooms feeling weird and awkward because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I knew there was stuff I could do, like I knew that there were quests. I knew that I could take part in like a group dance, but I didn't know when that was happening. And I was kind of apprehensive about the stuff like quests. Like, oh, this is gonna be like some improv. So instead I just sort of like wandered around for a while, trying to get B-roll, not doing a great job of it. And then at some point I went to the bathroom, and I have a shot of me saying that I feel tired, because I was like, am I just gonna go back to the room? I don't know. But then I had a very nice encounter with a woman at the sink. I complimented her makeup, because I feel like I looked pretty haggard the whole time. Because I was like, it's so hot and muggy, I don't want to like put on powder. I don't really have a base makeup routine. Like, I'm not wearing base makeup right now. I don't really know how to do it. I don't really have the products for it. So it's just like, I'm just gonna look how I look, and how I look is gonna be kind of red and sweaty. But there were some people where I was like, wow, she looks fantastic. And so I complimented this woman, and she complimented my dress, and I was like, thank you. I got it for like $80 on Depop. And she was like, yeah, I feel so out of my league. Because she was just wearing like a normal evening gown and a mask. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of intimidating. I don't know. I just didn't want to be the worst dressed person there, which is my continuous joke that I keep saying, but it's true. So that was a nice little conversation. I feel like everyone was so nice. I'm just kind of awkward, but everyone is very friendly, very nice. I feel like I could have gone up to anyone and asked questions and they would have helped me. And so at that point I calmed down a little bit because I was like, everyone's super chill, everything's fine. Let's just like go into some other rooms and do something else. So I again tried to get more B-roll. For the amount of times I say that, I feel like I have nothing. I don't know what happened. I think that's when I did the Goblin Cabaret room and freaked out. Then I went downstairs to the room before the throne room, and I ended up playing a dice game for like a while. Because I sort of wandered up to it, and one of the volunteers who were running the area was like, do you want to join? And I was like, I guess. And then once I started, I was like, oh, this is nice. This is like an activity. I like know what I'm doing. Cool. So then I did that for like a while, which again, because it was people like sitting around a table and like, I don't know, it felt weird to like film like, oh, this is the dice game area. So I just took like a little weird photo of the table, which is not good. That doesn't give you an idea of what's happening. I did leave at some point, and then I went upstairs to the library, looked around that for a little bit. I think I asked the librarians like, what's going on here? Like, I don't know. Give me your spiel. What fun things do you have to say about the room you're stationed in? Because I'm like, I'm sure all of these different volunteers have like a spiel prepared about like the stuff they're doing. So they told me like, oh, it's a bunch of artifacts from all the different realms. And I was like, great. And then I asked one of the wizard ladies, to take a photo of me in the library. And I'm like leaning weirdly. I don't know. Not my favorite photos. But then I got photos of myself in front of the like Biltmore wings. They have, you know, those like little Instagram photo spots of like wings and you stand in front of them. Biltmore has that like, I guess all the time, and they're like gold wings. And so it looks awesome with this outfit. It like, I just so happened to coordinate with it perfectly. So I got some great photos of me in front of the wings. Then I went back into the fairy room. I got some B-roll, and I asked this fox fairy character at the like fairy post office outpost, like, hey, what's going on here? And he's like, are you here on a quest? And I'm like, nope, just checking it out. He's like, curiosity, one of the most noble pursuits. I was like, yeah, we're LARPing, come on. And so then he had me trade for a trinket. He was like, do you have a joke or a piece of gossip or like something interesting that you could trade for one of these items? And I was like, oh no, I do not. Then he was like, okay, what about a cherished memory? I was like, cool. When I got this dress for $80. He was like, oh, the joys of trade, or whatever he said. And so then I got a little trinket from a trinket box for that. I don't know if it was worthy of a trinket, but it was nice of him to indulge me. Then I went into the wizard sanctum, and I was like, oh, more dice games. All right, comfortable with that. And I played a new dice game. These are like games of chance, just like fun little like rolling dice and cups with like different rules. It's not like Dungeons and Dragons. And then I knew that the dragon dance was scheduled for midnight. So the dragon dance is when in the crystal ballroom, Sparkles the dragon comes out and like lip syncs to fun different songs. So I knew that was happening. So I was like, okay, so I need to get in the crystal ballroom by midnight, because I was told by the volunteer, like, you need to get in there because they will close the doors. They will be like, we can't let anyone else in, because like it's a safety thing, like only so many people can be in a room. So I made it to the crystal ballroom, and it was very packed, very loud. I like to wear my earbuds on noise canceling mode. I would recommend that, or like bringing earplugs. Based on the time code of the clips that I have, I got there a little bit before midnight, and then Sparkles did not come out until 12:30. So I was hanging out for like half an hour, like, is Sparkles coming? Because I've never been in like a dancing situation, like we're all listening to loud music, dancing together. So I felt very awkward. Also, it was loud and very packed, which I didn't like. And I also felt stupid. I was like, am I in the wrong place? Or like, is this the wrong time? Has it already happened? Is it not happening? I don't know. Because also I had heard that apparently the Masquerade Ball song from Labyrinth, the As the World Falls Down song, is supposed to play in all of the different rooms at like midnight. And then everyone can like dance to the song from the Masquerade Ball at the Masquerade Ball. Oh, how cute. Apparently they did it at 11:30. So I must have been like playing a dice game or something. I don't know. I missed that. So I had already in my head been like, there's supposed to be a song and that's not happening. So maybe I'm wrong about everything. I don't know. But Sparkles did come out. Everyone went crazy. And they would have Sparkles lip sync to a song and then like leave and then like come back later. I don't know if it's a limitation of like the puppeteers or of the machinery, where it's not like Sparkles is just like on stage for half an hour continuously. It's like back and forth, off and on. And there are also performers who come out like off and on to lip sync and perform to songs. So like some dancers came out and did We're All in This Together from High School Musical, Bohemian Rhapsody, Magic Dance, the song from Labyrinth, and everyone went crazy for that one. That was very fun. It took me a while, but I did get into it at a certain point and like start dancing, because I was like, I think it's weirder to just stand here motionless. So I guess we'll start dancing. And then I just like kept dancing and then got like more into it. And then also it was nice when the crowd started thinning out, because like people started leaving. They were like, yeah, I've seen the dragon dance, I'm good. And then there was like half as many people who were all like really into dancing and like having fun. and weren't just there to see the dragon. And so I had various interactions with like other people who were also dancing and like having fun. And I got like very into it. At one point they played Hot to Go and I was like screaming the words. By like 1:30 I had started really fading because I don't really do like cardio like that, you know? So I had really lost momentum and I was like, okay, we need to go back to the hotel room. That was crazy. Been dancing for the past hour and a half, which, to be clear, not something I do. I got into it. It took me a while. I was real grumpy at first there. I'm gonna take a shower because I got super sweaty. I didn't bring any color safe shampoo with me because I was like, I just got my hair done on like Monday. Can't imagine I'm gonna get sweaty enough to wash my hair. I washed it last night. Incorrect. So then I went to bed and I woke up on Saturday, but I did mostly sleep all day. Whoops. This is the like bad at being alone thing. I missed out on the puppet showcase. Seemingly there was no way for me to participate in that. Like it was too late, I guess. I don't know. I also definitely slept through it. So even if everything had gone the same and I had a ticket to the puppet thing, I would have really needed to try harder to like get up for it. There's also a tradition called the mermaid swim where everyone brings like those mermaid tails that you wear and they go to the Biltmore pool and they have like a mermaid swim in the pool. The Biltmore has an indoor pool that has been used in like TV and movies. It's the famous Cruel Intentions swimming pool. So I didn't see that either. Can you hear the music? There's live music happening across the street. I think it's like a summer concert series and it happens all the time. I saw people in the Facebook group complaining about it. Like next time I'm gonna try and get a room as far away from this as possible. It is kind of annoying. You can also like kind of feel the bass of it, which I don't appreciate. So last night I took a shower. I did end up washing my hair with just the hotel shampoo, but not a lot of pink came out, I don't think. I can always put more pink on it, but I didn't want my hair to be like dirty. Because towards the end of the night I went to one of the ballrooms and I ended up dancing. And I wasn't seriously dancing the whole time. It took me a while to like get into it, but I was seriously dancing for a while. I tapped out at like 1:30. I was like, we should go back to the hotel room. Because at that point I was like, just kind of swaying. I had like lost all momentum. So I probably went to bed at like 3. And then I have insomnia, so like that didn't work great. I dozed off for a little bit and then I was up at like 5 maybe. And I did fall back asleep and then I woke up at like noon with this happening outside of the window. And I was like, oh, cool. And I did fall asleep again and now it's like a little bit past 4 maybe. Yeah, so like remember that puppet thing that I didn't end up booking? I definitely would have slept through that, so I think it's probably a good thing I didn't end up booking it, even though I do kind of feel FOMO. Because they were explaining during the pre-show, this is the only time they've ever done this sort of puppet experience meet and greet thing, so that's a bummer that I didn't see it. But also when I was checking in, I asked if I could add that on, and the vibe was like, no. It's too late. They do have food for purchase available at the event, but I think I should get something to eat before, and I don't know where. I probably shouldn't stay up as late tonight because I have to check out of the hotel tomorrow and I don't want to sleep through a hotel checkout, so I don't know when I should go to bed, but earlier than last night. I went back to sleep. You can get the girl out of her bedroom, but you can't get her out of bed. I'm gonna go downstairs to the lobby, try and get some B-roll. It's like 7 right now. Since I don't have pre-show, I'm just general admission at 8 o'clock. I'm gonna see if I can buy like some snacks or something to like bring back to the room. And then I'm gonna get ready for 8 o'clock. In the evening, I did go and record some B-roll of the lobby. And I had a funny interaction with a man in the elevator. There were like 3 men in the elevator. 2 of them were like clearly in costume for the labyrinth ball. One of them was dressed up as like a fancy dandy man. And the other one, I don't remember what he was dressed up as. And then the third man was just a normal man. Just like a normal, stone-faced man who seemed not super into everything that was happening. Because there are some just like normal hotel guests while this is all going on. And I don't think that the Biltmore like warns them. I think maybe you could figure it out. I don't know how you would, though. I don't think it's like advertised on the Biltmore website that this is going to be happening. So I think some people just like show up and they're like, whoa, what is going on here? So stone-faced normal man left, and then dandy man was like, some people don't get it. I was like, yeah, I would imagine. And he was like, the first year we did it here, there was a Christian convention at the same time, and they did not like us, and they were like calling us devils and everything. I was like, oh God. Which I think at this point, the Labyrinth Ball sort of takes over the whole hotel. I don't think there's space for a different convention to also be happening at the same time, but maybe like 10 years ago, it wasn't as big as it is now. I'm baselessly speculating, but it is nice that I think at this point, the Labyrinth Ball and the Biltmore have a very well-established, good relationship. I'm sure that when they started and they were like hopping around different places, that it was probably very stressful, like finding a venue and explaining like, here's what we're doing, like, are you guys cool with that? And I'm sure now they're very practiced at like setting things up in this space, and it's probably gotten much easier the longer they've been here. So then I got dressed and I got ready in outfit number 2, and this time I sort of had plans of what I wanted to accomplish. I was like, I know what my options are, here are the things I haven't done. Here's the elf dress. This belt bag, I got it off Etsy, and then this is my grandpa's belt, I think, that my mom has. The belt bag is not as big as the bag from yesterday. Now, the bag from yesterday was a huge pain because I had to have it on my shoulder the whole time, and I think it, like, damaged my shoulder slightly. So I'm happy to be hands-free, but if I get a lot of trinkets, we might have a problem. I did my makeup. You already saw it. It was the same as yesterday's. My bag, which is not going to fit as much as yesterday's. My goals for the night. Get a picture with a bird. I think it's going to be not cheap, but what other circumstances do I have an option to do that? Try the food that is available for purchase, do a quest, and go to a fortune teller. Those are our plans. And then try to go to bed earlier. Checkout's at 11. So thing number 1 was to get a photo with a bird. In the Emerald Room, there was the Birds of Prey photo op thing. This is run by a nonprofit called Falcon's Court. And they go to like Ren fairs and schools and whatever and let people meet these birds. And I was like, when in my life am I gonna get a photo with a bird in fantasy costume? So let's do it. I kind of purposefully left it for night 2 because I was like, I don't think this outfit matches a bird as well as the next outfit is gonna match a bird. I don't know if I was overthinking it, but I felt like the elf outfit would look better photographed with a bird. So there were 9 different birds, and they show you photos of the birds for you to pick from. So you pick which bird you want. There were owls, hawks, and falcons. And there were 3 different price points based on like, I don't actually know what it was based on. Based on like how desirable the bird was? I don't know. So a man shows you the birds and lets you take a picture of the options so you can sort of deliberate while you're in line. And you line up and you get up to a table where you pick your bird and then a person takes your payment. I picked Lady Aloria, the barn owl, because Jareth in Labyrinth turns into a barn owl. So I liked her because of that reason. And then also I thought that her color scheme would look good with my outfit because I didn't want to pick a dark colored bird who would like blend in with the dress. And I didn't want a bird who was too small because I think they had like little owls and I was like, that's kind of underwhelming. No offense, but like, I want like a bigger bird. I also asked the lady, I was like, how heavy are these birds? And she was like, they're not that heavy and you're not holding them for that long. And I was like, okay. Because I am not very strong. So I was like, if this is a heavy bird, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And I don't want to like move my arm because I'm holding this heavy bird and then have the bird freak out. Like, I don't want to cause any problems with these birds. So I also liked that Lady Aloria was like, she said like one of the like middle weights because there were some of the birds that she were like, these are our heaviest birds. And I was like, got it. So not any of those. Which the way that the photos work is they give you your photos on a flash drive, but they also email you some photos that they have retouched. Like they pick some of the good ones and then they like fix them up for you. So in order to do that, they need your contact information. So you go down the line to the next person and you fill out a little card with your contact info. Then you wait in line for your bird. Each bird, I think, has a handler who's like assigned to them. And if the bird is not being photographed, then the handler is just kind of like walking around with the bird and like talking to people with the bird. So I did I did see other people talk to some people with some birds. And so I got to like, oh, look at that bird, you know? So I made it to the front of the line, and they like ask you like, which bird do you have? Because they have to like go get the person who has the bird. And I got my glove, my like falconer's glove or whatever. And then I met Lady Aloria's handler. He was dressed like kind of steampunky. I feel like he had a top hat. And he taught me how to hold my arm, because you need it like kind of close to your body, so most of the weight is on your shoulder, not like flopped out, and like keeping your wrist in a neutral position, and like don't drop your arm, because then she's gonna try and crawl up your arm, and like that's gonna hurt, 'cause she has sharp little talons. And he warned me, he was like, she's a little stressed out because she's kind of spoiled, and most of the events we do, she isn't interacting with people for that long. So this is sort of her like 2 nights a year where she like does a lot of interacting with people. It's the hardest she has to work. So she's not in the best mood. And so I was like, don't stress out the bird further. Got it. So then he transfers the bird to me, which the bird is like clipped to his glove, and there's like wrapping of a cord around the fingers of the glove just to sort of like make sure that things are secure in case of anything happens. So then he sort of transfers all that over to me, and then she sort of walks backward onto my arm, which was very interesting. They're obviously all very well trained. I don't know how you train a bird to like know that this is what we're doing. Because like, what? This is weird. I guess for the bird it's normal, but for me it's odd. Then I met the photographer. He was great. At some point, either he or the handler like told me to like move my arm, like twist it out a little bit to like for the angle, and I was like, I don't want to move. I don't want to move this bird, no. But it was fine. And at the end, one of them, I forget which one of them, said like, that was great. You could tell she was really comfortable with you. And I was like, yes. I got a good grade in bird holding. So then they showed me the pictures on the computer. They all look amazing. I'm so happy I did it. But I didn't get to have them in that moment because they were on a flash drive, so I had to wait until I got home to like plug them into my laptop. The whole process took, I'd say, between an hour and 15 minutes. It was not fast, but I think it was very worth it to do it. And I think it was also good to get it over with early in the evening, because I did hear that they do cap the line. They're like, at a certain point, they're like, we're not going to be able to fit any more people in, so it's good to do it so you don't lose your opportunity. Then I went out to the garden to get pizza. I got pizza and a Sprite, and that was $32. It's like a personal pan margarita pizza and a can of Sprite. And I sat over by the docks at like a table by myself. Then it was time for questing. So I went to the post office, and I had to be sworn in. So they have a printed out like poster with all of their rules. The rules basically amounting to don't interfere with any performances, don't try to go backstage, don't like harass anybody. I was like, Jesus, these, I guess it's good to like spell it out, but it is crazy that we have to specify these rules. So I did the swearing in, and then I talked to a different post office person. They have like, I'd say 6 people sitting at tables dealing with quest stuff. And so I got assigned my first round of quests. For level 1, you get 4 quests, and then you pick 3 of them to accomplish. I did not ask how this system works, but I'm pretty sure how this works is there are 3 levels of quests. And then there are also bonus quests after you finish those 3 levels. I believe there are 6 quest station locations: the library, the wizard sanctum, the fairy post office outpost, the cipher trading company booth, the archaeologist guild, and the docks. What I'm guessing is that each location has 1 quest for each level and 1 bonus quest. And then it is random which quests you get on your little papers, because they hand you 4, and I think there's 6 in total, and so they've just like put some of them together in a little paper thing for you. And that way everyone is sort of spread out It's not like everyone who's doing a quest is trying to do the same things in the same location at the same time. So this first round, I did all 4 of the quests just to like see what they were. I don't know. I was curious. All of these level 1 quests start out with the same text. Thank you for your interest in becoming a cipher postal agent of the Royal Curia. The portals to the worlds of magic and wonder open each year, allowing dreamers to celebrate within the labyrinth Masquerade. After last year's entanglement, the flying skyship Starlighter is repaired and ready for its journey tonight. Your task as a postal agent is to assist the Starlighter's crew in final preparations so they can reignite the fading stars and save our realms. So that was kind of the first big piece of lore I got. I was like, oh, there's like a boat thing happening. All right, cool. The first one I did was to check the location of the Wizard Sanctum. Apparently the Wizard Sanctum likes to move locations. So I was checking to make sure that it was in the right place. And so I go to the Wizard Sanctum and I'm like, hi, I'm here on a quest. I meant to like check on you guys. And then one of the volunteers like directed me to a different person, and then the guy was like, you're here on a quest? And I was like, yeah, I meant to like check to see if you guys are here. And he was like, oh, that's like the first quest. There's nothing else you have to do. You just go back to them and say like, oh, I found it. And then they like throw confetti and like it's, you know. I was like, okay, cool. Because I wasn't sure if I like needed to do something. Which then I saw that man later, and he was like, how's the questing going? And I was like, good. He was like, did you do it? I was like, yes. And he was like, yeah. Then I checked to see if the privateers had arrived at the docks. So I went to the privateers and I was like, yes, hello. I meant to check to see if you're here. They were like, are we here? I think we are. I was like, okay, cool. Thank you. And one of the pirate ladies had little rubber ducky earrings, which I complimented. Then I checked the archaeologist logs. They had like papers that the archaeologists had like written diary entries on, which explained that there was treasure in tunnels, but then Lady Grey took custody of the treasure because like it was dangerous or something. I don't remember. And then I went to the library to look for a record of a new type of elemental. And I asked the library ladies, I was like, hi, I'm looking for information on a new elemental. They were like, oh, well, that would be considered this thing. So, like, there's going to be information in the little alcove themed around this thing. So I was like, great. And then I looked, and there was a book thing about prismatic elementals. So I did those 4 quests. Then you go back in line at the post office, and then they call you, like, the DMV. They're like, next. And you go up, and you report your findings. So I'm like, well, I learned that there are prismatic elementals, and the privateers are at the docks, and there's some sort of treasure that has been taken custody of by Lady Grey. And they were like, oh, good work. The way that they keep track of your quests is they have a little card that they fill out with like your name. What I did not realize, because they asked for my name, and so I said Sarah. I think a lot of people are with other people, and so they have a group name. And so they like name themselves something that isn't just their actual name. Because if you're multiple people, then you like come up with a name. I did not do that because I am alone, and they just asked for my name. They didn't ask for like a team name. So then there were multiple Sarahs, because there's always multiple Sarahs. So they brought out a card, and I didn't notice this at the time, that was not my card. It was a different Sarah's card, and they stamped it, which was mildly a problem later, but wasn't a problem at this point because I didn't realize. So they stamp your card to be like, you've completed level 1, and they give you a reward. They've made these little fabric badges. You get to pick one out of a little chest. And then they're like, would you like to do more quests? And I'm like, yes, I would. And so then I got the paperwork for quest level 2. There are 3 options, and this time I only did 2 of them because I was like, okay, I get the vibe. The intro text for this level is, a shadow looms over our celebration. While Duke Carabas rightly sounded the alarm, the Curia believes that knowledge is the sharpest and most precise weapon in our arsenal. We must understand the nature of this creature and catalog every resource at our disposal if we are to protect the crew of the Starlighter and ensure their mission to the stars is a success. And I was like, who's Duke Carabas? And what's the problem? I must have missed something. Whoops, I don't know. But the options for this level were to go to the library to ask about artifacts to fight evil. I did not do that one. Go to the fairy post office and ask about elementals, which I did, and I found out that the prismatic elementals are going to aid us in our fight against the darkness. And the third option was to ask the pirates about the night elemental Cygnus. So I went to one of the pirates, and I was like, I'm meant to ask you about the night elemental Cygnus. And I learned that he had been bitten and brought down by some creature called the Devourer. So then I went and reported my findings to the post office again. And at this point, when they brought out the Sarah card, they brought out my card, which had not been stamped because they stamped the other Sarah's card. And I was like, oh no. So then I explained to them, I was like, I think we're having a Sarah problem. And they were like, well, then the one that we stamped is just now going to become your card. And I was like, okay. And then I got the badge for level 2. And they were like, would you like to continue being loyal to the post office and do more quests? And I was like, yeah. And then I got the quests for level 3. Level 3 has 2 options. The opening text is, we now have a name for the terror consuming the stars. Mirkir, the Devourer. Duke Carabas and the Prince believe that the vault we recently discovered contains a trove of artifacts that could help us face this ancient foe. However, our research is incomplete, and it is far too dangerous to send the crew off with unknown magics. We've enlisted our closest allies to expedite our examinations, and we need you to bring back their findings to arm our crew. And so then the 2 options are asking the librarians about decoding a scroll, which I did not do, and ask the Cipher Trading Company about some magical gloves. I tried not to go to the same quest location like too many times, so I was like, I've been to the library. I haven't ever been to the Cipher Trading Post, so like, let's do that one. So there was a lady there, and I asked her about these magical gloves, and she was like, oh, those are nimble finger gloves. They make your fingers a little bit more sticky, so they can, you know, a little 5-finger glove discount. I was like, okay, gotcha. Not 100% sure how that is going to help us fight evil, but I'm sure it's useful. So then I went and I got my badge for level 3. You see it? Come on, autofocus. And then they were like, well, if you want to do more quests, there's some like little bonus ones for you. I was like, great, sure. So I did one. I didn't somehow get to keep the papers for that one, which I can't imagine they're keeping the papers for anything. I'm sure it all just goes in ye old recycling bin. So I maybe should have bothered them like, wait, give that back to me. But there was a quest about the baby dragon in the fairy room that its name needs to be officially documented and like registered with the post office. So then I went to the fairy post office outpost. And there's a woman there who was playing this like, I don't know, fun like gnome character. I don't know, she had like a yarn beard on and she was doing a very fun voice. And I was like, oh, we need to fill out a birth certificate for this. I don't know if it was a birth. Oh, we need to fill out a naming certificate for this baby dragon. And she was like, oh, I didn't know we had to do paperwork. I was like, yeah. And so basically we had to do an acrostic poem. Like we wrote out the name of the baby dragon, which is apparently Dazzle. And then you put a word for each of the letters in the word Dazzle. But you will notice Dazzle has 2 Z's in it. One of the worst letters. So I think this person had prepped an answer for each letter just in case the person doing the quest couldn't think of anything. I think I came up with half the words and she came up with like the other half of the words. For letters L and E, well, for L we could put L for little, because he is little for a dragon. I was like, yeah. And then when I couldn't think of anything for E, she was like, well, we could put E for enormous, because he is enormous for a baby. I was like, yes, he is. He contains multitudes. It's all a matter of perspective. It's a shame that I didn't get to keep that paper. I mean, I'm sure the post office needed to file that away, but, you know, I would have liked to keep it. Somehow it got whisked away from me. And then I got one last quest. Oh, these come in, like, little envelopes. The Curia is still recovering from the chaos caused by the baby dragon's pilfering and the influx of new artifacts that we've discovered within its hoard last year. One of these artifacts is a magical box of unknown origin, but we have yet to figure out how to break the lock to see what treasures it might hold. Could you be the one to finally crack the code? Find the librarians at their desk in the Cipher Library, across from the Crystal Ballroom in the main hall, and ask if you can be of assistance. Perhaps your fresh eyes will see a clue they have missed. Return to us once the box has been opened. And then at the bottom it says, objective. Go to the library and ask the librarian if you can help them with the locked box. Return to us once you help them. So all of them have a little objective to sort of summarize what it is you're supposed to be doing. And they have in bold and underlined the location of where you're supposed to go. So that's helpful in case if you're like not sure where everything is yet. So I go to the librarians and I'm like, I'm supposed to help you open a box. They're like, oh, thank goodness you're here. And I'm like, yeah, I get that a lot. There's a box with a bunch of gears on it, and there's one gear that was clearly missing. We think this might be the way to open the box, but we don't have the gear. We think the archaeologists might have it. And I was like, okay. So then I went down to the archaeologists, and I was like, hello, do you have gears? They were like, yes. And then they had like a box of gears, because obviously if multiple people are doing this quest, they can't just have like one gear. So I took a gear back to the librarians, and then we put it on the box, and it actually like fit in place, and then like turned. There was some sort of like mechanical mechanism in it, because then it was like beeping, and I almost said something. I almost was like, is it supposed to do that? But I thought it would ruin the magic if I acknowledged it, because I think that's just how whoever made this, that's just the mechanism that it has. And there was a bunch of treasure in the box, and so she gave me one of the pieces of treasure, and she was like, here it is. Bring this back to the post office to sort of show them that the box has been opened. And then when I got to the post office, they were like, well, you can keep that as, you know, a token of your hard work. And I was like, thank you so much. And then they were like, well, thanks to everyone's hard work, we've run out of things to do. We've run out of paperwork. Never thought I'd see the day. Really what that means is it was past midnight, and past midnight they don't give out any new quests. So there were, I think, 4 more bonus quests I could have done, but I did not get the opportunity to do them. I don't know what would have happened if I had done all of them, if I would have got like a secret special extra reward. I also don't know if I could have kept that card, because, you know, I like having little mementos. I don't know where I'm going to put them, but it's nice to have. There were 2 main people working at the post office who I interacted with. There was this like tall woman, and we like talked to each other multiple times. She was great. And there was a man who had like horns that were very fun. I liked him. And there was also a woman who was like controlling the line, and she was nice. I liked her. I think she especially started to like recognize me, because like, you know, if you're coming back over and over, at some point she was like, I need like a sign or a balloon or something, because people kept like missing her. She was also in like a black starry gown, so it was like kind of hard to like see her in this dimly lit room of like, where's the lady who like is in charge of, where does the line start, you know? It almost needs to be like a little exclamation point above her head, like in a video game. I thought the questing was very fun. I like the idea of like getting information and bringing it back, or sometimes like getting trinkets. It made me think of Jenny Nicholson's video about Evermore and how they have a very bad quest system. This, I think, worked very well. You really did feel like you were exploring and getting information about the lore. Everyone was kind of spread out and doing different things. I had a conversation with someone in line, and he was like, yeah, we had to go to the archaeologists and ask them about a teapot, and the teapot was like giving the archaeologists delusions. And so we have to report back that it's like an evil teapot. And I told them about my magical glove quest. Everyone was very fun to LARP with. I don't know how any of the quest roleplay stuff works. That would be interesting to hear about. Like, I'm sure they must get like a role assigned to them. Like you apply to be one of the people, and then it's like, okay, you're gonna be one of the archaeologists. And they give you, like, the information of, like, this is what you say if people ask about these things, because these are the quests that people would be asking you about. So here's all the lore you need to know. And then I don't know how the costuming works, like, your character building, because I'm assuming, like, the woman in the fairy area with the, like, big yarn beard and whatever, I'm assuming she decided, like, this is my fun idea for the character I'm gonna do. But I don't know if there's, like, guidelines. Very interesting, very fun. I felt like everyone did a great job. It ran very smoothly. I just wish I could have gotten to do all of the quests, you know? I can be very completionist like that. I'm trying to 100% Stardew Valley right now, if that tells you anything. And I do agree that the quest is good if you're like new, because you're gonna get to see a lot of different places and like learn a lot, and it's sort of interactive and it's like an activity to do. And I think it is very fun to do if you're alone, because then you're like meeting people and talking to people and like having fun. I was nervous to do it that first night. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to like go do fantasy improv. I'm not in the mood. But I very much enjoyed it. So as I had mentioned, at this point, it was past midnight. I did look over at the Crystal Ballroom, and there was a super long line to get in. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to deal with that. Because also, I wanted to get to bed earlier, because I knew I would have to get up to get out of the hotel. So I didn't want to, like, stay up super late again. So it seemed like a bad idea to stay up late dancing again. And then also, I don't know if it was just confirmation bias, because I know that Saturday is more popular, but it did feel busier. It felt like there were more people out and about. So I wasn't like dying to get back into the Crystal Ballroom because it probably was going to be a little bit much. This outfit is very slippery. I'm like sliding in the chair. So at that point, I just decided to go back to the hotel room. The only thing I didn't accomplish was the fortune teller, because kind of everything in that vein of like quests, fortune tellers, I think the birds maybe, they all kind of shut down at midnight. The ball itself keeps going. I don't know at what point they kick everybody out, but at 1:30 when I went to bed the night before, people were still up. So, I don't know. But I just sort of missed my window of opportunity for the fortune teller. But I went back to the hotel room and I tried to go to bed. It's 12:15 and I have retired back to my room. I need to go to bed earlier tonight. I almost set out everything I wanted to accomplish, but I did not end up getting a fortune read. I think there's quite a bit of stuff that ends around like midnight, and so I sort of missed the window of opportunity for that. But everything else was very fun. I'm almost positive I did not get enough B-roll. I mean, there's nothing is too much B-roll, and there's definitely nothing is too little B-roll, so like, I know I didn't. But I did feel weird filming. It feels rude. So we're gonna make it work with what we've got. The next morning, I got a text from the hotel that was basically like, thank you all for staying here. You don't have to check out at the front desk. You can just leave. Because I think it's like hundreds of people trying to check out at the same time. And they're like, please, just get out. We're good. But it was smart of them to send that message because I was mentally preparing for like, okay, I'm going to have to like go down and like check out. Which, because I knew it was so busy, I sort of considered the idea of breakfast. Because I know there's a breakfast buffet. And then I was like, I don't want to deal with that. It's probably busy. I don't care. And so I fell back asleep. And then I had multiple alarms set, as I always do. And so at my 10:45 alarm, I did get up. I was like, oh no. Because checkout was 11, which didn't end up mattering because I didn't actually have to like check out. But I had told my mom to pick me up at 11. So I was like, she's going to be here like soon. So we need to get ready. So I finished up packing, got all dressed, and was out of the hotel room by like 11:02 or something. Then I went down the elevator, and the elevator was like pretty full, but they were like, no, come in. And I was like, okay. And then they were explaining it's really hard to get an elevator down because there's tons of people. The building is 11 floors tall, and there's only 6 elevators. So one of the ladies was saying like, yeah, I waited like half an hour for an elevator. I was like, ooh. So I got very lucky getting an elevator like immediately. And then it did stop on like every floor, and people would look in and be like, oh, because we were like super packed in there. Like there wasn't room. I think one floor there was like a lone man who was able to like sneak in. But I did feel bad like going past everybody like, oh, sorry. Hopefully you'll catch the next one. Then my mom successfully picked me up, and I went home and I looked at my owl pictures. And I was very pleased with them. So that was my experience at the Labyrinth of Jareth Masquerade Ball. It was very fun. I didn't know if I would like it, and I didn't like it at first. I was kind of stressed. It's kind of overwhelming and like a little bit confusing. But I got into it, and it does feel like the first year is probably the hardest. Like now that I've done it, I feel like I could do it again, and I would have more of a sense of like what I would want to do and like how I would do it, you know? It was also expensive. I have told you the prices of things. I've not given you a grand total because I don't know the grand total, because I don't know if I want a grand total. I don't know if I need that. in my life. I mean, I'm a weird person to ask if it was worth it because, first of all, I was doing it for a video, so that like changes how worth it is because it was like content. I make money from the video, so it's gonna be like worth it in that sense. Also, I don't really go places or do things, so I'm not like used to spending money like on a lot of stuff, so I'm not like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like my sense of money is weird because I'm not like, I don't like go out to the movie theater. I was gonna make up a number of how much going to the movie theater costs, and I realized I have no idea. But I did do this thing, which was like super expensive and elaborate and crazy. If this sounds like a thing that you would like, I think it's worth it because it's so elaborate. There's so many things to do. Even if you're alone, you can have fun. It's a very well-run event. You can tell that they've been doing this for 27 years. Like, they have a lot of experience. Everything goes really smoothly. I have nothing to compare it to, but I would assume that this is, like, on the higher end of events like this. Like, this is really good for what it is, you know? And I think I've seen people online say that, of, like, we went to something similar and it wasn't nearly as good. Like, Labyrinth Ball is the best, you know? It's also just a very lovely community. Everyone's very friendly. Everyone wants to help. Everybody's costumes are so impressive, which you can see images on the official website and on the Facebook page of like people posting images of stuff. But it's a lot of people who are very into LARP and Dungeons and Dragons and cosplay. So I think you'd also like it if you're into those kind of things. I was right that the audience skews kind of older than me, but it was funny because I did see some, like, children, which I forget that, like, people have children and you can just bring your child places. I'm a homebody who has been raised by 2 homebodies, so, like, we don't do stuff. But if you're, like, a nerdy couple who, like, does LARP or whatever and you have a kid, you're gonna bring your kid to Labyrinth Ball and they're gonna have a great time. It is late at night. Like, it starts at 8, so I don't know at what point you, like, need to put that kid to bed, but I definitely saw some kids in some costumes, and I was like, that's crazy. You're a child. All in all, I'm very glad I went, and I would definitely go again, which is not exactly what I thought I would be saying. I thought maybe I'd be like, I'm glad I went, one and done, I'm over it. Or, like, worst case scenario, like, I regret going. But no. Best case scenario, loved it. Thank God. Okay, so now me from the past is gonna come back and do the outro, so be nice to her. Hello, me from the past again, filming my outro. I hope you enjoyed. God, I hope I enjoyed. Did I enjoy? I hope I did. I hope everything went well. If you liked this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Tumblr. I've been posting short form content that's more casual, so you can check that out. I also got a P.O. box, so if you want, you can send me things in the mail. And as always, all the sources for this video will be linked in a Google Doc in the description. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video, so bye!